tackles for loss, a big part of this defensive success all season long. It's another pick in the flat. Kip Lewis. Milroe can't get him. Pick six. Oklahoma building the lead.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com.
Dart looking downfield. He is going to take a shot towards the end zone. No one there but Gators. And it's a pick. Bryce Thornton with the interception.
365 Sports is presented by IdealMRI.com. High-quality MRIs for $497 or less. IdealMRI.com. Your health is important, so is your budget.
Play fake. Levitt setting up. Got a receiver wide open downfield. It's caught by Guillory. What a bounce back by Arizona State. Touchdown Devils.
365 Sports is also brought to you by Texas Farm Bureau Insurance, protecting Texans since 1952.
Out of the backfield, it's Neal. Catch and run for Devin Neal. Oh boy, there he goes. The local kid from Lawrence scores first and sets Kansas City into a frenzy.
365 Sports is turbocharged by Unite Private Networks. Find out more at uniteprivatenetworks.com.
Jerry Hunter picked up a blitzer. Man open and caught in stride. Touchdown, Coleman.
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
And here we go on 365 Sports, and a little bit different today. We, for the first time, Craig brought this up yesterday, with Paul Catalina struggling through Florida State's after the nightmare of how 2023 ended. Craig in Oklahoma at 6-5 with a win against Alabama. Nebraska, first bowl game since 16. Garrett Ross with a team. What are they, 7-4, 6-5?
I believe they're 7-4.
And then Garrett, and then Emory. Emory on a 5-game winning streak as a Baylor alum. He's wearing an RG3 jersey. And so we decided it would be like favorite team day. I haven't worn this shirt in a long time. I don't wear jerseys. Paul, I know you don't. But Craig has worn a few. But when last time you actually, I know you're not wearing a jersey. You're wearing a really nice kind of a top here. So when was the last time you wore a jersey? You remember?
I don't ever wear jerseys,
okay,
so no,
well,
I
I
don't
damn
remember.
sure did today. I'm wearing one today. Yeah.
Ever wear jerseys? This is called a hooded sweatshirt. It's what this is called.
Or a hoodie, yeah.
Yeah, I came up with the idea. We are typically as unbiased as possible. I feel like we do a very good job with that. Yeah, you know, there might be things we talk about more, but I don't think we're here like the Big 12's the greatest conference. Like we call it like we see it, right? Like we call it if teams suck, we say they suck. If they're great, they're great. It doesn't matter who you are, where you're from, whatever. We stay pretty in between. I'd argue this is an era where being a homer is like that's out front more than ever before in media. Like that used to be kind of like you were neutral, you're unbiased, or at least you pretended to be. Now that's like completely out of the bag, right? You're just full on fan of your team. But
not us.
The reason why I decided to flip that script today is because, yes, for the first time the entire season, all of our teams won on the same weekend. It has not happened until last weekend, and I just thought going into a holiday where we're taking a long break and it being such a poor season for so many of our teams, although you guys just got bowl eligible, Oklahoma just got bowl eligible, really there's only one team that's not going to the postseason. But regardless.
Who, Craig?
It's that logo right on your hat there, Paul. But because of the fact that this has only happened one time, I just thought it would be some kind of quirky and a little bit different, a little bit fun to do. So we're going to be homers, in clothing for the day. But, it took a while to get to this point. And that first week, this was actually easy to narrow down, guys. Because you're like, wow, all these teams, like I got to go and I got to compare. And no, Florida State had only won one game before.
Yeah.
So I went and looked at that weekend. I was like, nope, couple teams lost. Oklahoma lost to Tennessee. Nebraska lost to Illinois. We were at that game. Mm-hmm. Baylor lost to Colorado.
Yeah.
So that was actually like a miserable weekend. So that was easy to just check off and be like, nope. So this weekend, Boom, easy peasy. Here we are. Everybody won.
You had to look at one other way. That's how crap Florida State season has been. Your research was
2 weeks.
What?
How many wins do they have?
2. But he knew already that they won this week. So to compare, so he knew already going in that we all won, right? All of our teams won. And then, I'm sorry, my hat is all akimbo.
Dikembe, he just passed away.
But it is. But for him to only have to go back to, okay, their only other one was against Cal. What else happened that week? That's how bad the season was, is that it took Craig one Google search.
Yeah, 5 seconds.
Well,
I said, Oklahoma lost, Nebraska. Okay, that didn't count. So this week, it was the only week because there was only 1 week to cross-check. Thank you, Florida State, for making my job easy. So here we are, and we're going to have a little bit of fun with just we're college football fans at the core, the root of it all. Yeah, so here we are.
All right, so Baylor has 4 losses, right, Emory? 4. LSU has 4. That's 8. Nebraska, Oklahoma have combined 10, 18, and then how many? 9? Mm-hmm. Yeah, so we didn't have to look long. Craig, with the idea, and by the way, we will be giving everyone a chance to get away for the rest of the holidays. So we have a great lineup. Colt McCoy, a great college quarterback, one of the best ever. He'll join us today at 4. We'll have some of our regulars. Shehan Jeyarajah will join us today at 3:40. And Lance Leipold, KU football coach, will join us today a little bit after Craig's off the radar in the 5 o'clock hour, plus John McClain at 5:30 or so. And then, of course, off the radar, as I mentioned, in Paul's top 5. So when we're all 3, Garrett, did you do a top 12?
Yeah, I got one.
So we all have our college football standings, the college football playoff standings that we do, that we did. That's an idea. We'll have that today sometime, I think, either at 4:25 or 5:25 today. Thanks for those of you in the chat already, those of you watching us on Twitter at 365 Sports YT and on the app 365 Sports or Sikkim 365. This, to me, it was just a few days ago when North Carolina, Mack Brown, Hall of Fame coach, said he was going to stick around going to be back for another year. And then today, he's no longer the head. Well, he is going to be for their last game coming up this weekend. But North Carolina has fired Mack Brown. I consider him not as a great friend, but someone who I've communicated with many, many times over the years, and not just when he was at Texas. And this, to me, is like a fighter that wanted to take on one more guy. And it probably was time. I love the guy. He's gone. North Carolina will move on.
Part of it, I think, might have just been some contractual, chicken. Because everybody thought maybe he'd retire. And then I think he basically painted him into a corner by saying, like, no, I'll keep coaching as long as I've got a contract, as long as they'll have me. And they're like, oh, no, and now he gets a buyout and all that. But Mack has had a legendary career. He's a Hall of Famer in every regard. It's just time. And they thought he quit after the JMU game. Like, half the people at North Carolina thought, oh, did he just quit? Like, did he just retire because he was so worn out and that game was bad? I mean, they gave up 70 points in the game. I think it'll be interesting to see where the search starts. If you follow a lot of the talking heads, John Summerall at Tulane is a very strong candidate. I really do think, I'm going to keep banging the drum for Jamie Chadwell until he gets a P4 job. He's dominated the Carolinas and the Virginia area. So to me, it would make sense for him to get an opportunity at a premier school in that area.
Well, I mean, just yesterday, Mack Brown was saying he was planning on sticking around. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So you can tell how quickly North Carolina wanted to put that fire out. Less than 24 hours later, they're like, nope. But, yeah, he was at his press conference yesterday and said, I had talked to the athletic director, Bubba Cunningham, but I plan on coming back, and here we are the next day. And they made it very clear, obviously, to him that was not going to be the case. So, I guess, it's about time. Carolina's just sort of there at this point. He's done a really excellent job with that program. He's the greatest coach in that program's history, been there twice around, won a lot of games for them. But, yeah, I think with the situation earlier this year, just sort of felt like maybe he was losing his touch, and then they kind of rebound a little bit. But still struggling, and clearly it's not like going the right direction big picture-wise. So I can totally understand from North Carolina's perspective just the need to do something a little bit different at this point. Like, they've done the Mack Brown thing for a good long while. Again, best wishes to him. He's going to always have a suite and an office in the football, part of the building, I'm sure. Like, he'll always be connected to that program. But I do feel like they were kind of just out there and sort of in need of a change. So it makes sense for them based on the way the last couple of years have gone.
All right, so there's that. There's a few other coaching notes. Again, Mack Brown out. I always have thought that he would be great as a commissioner of college football. And, again, I love the guy. There were times when I remember I'd leave voicemails in his office after they had beaten Nebraska one time after another, and he would always call me. And we had him on many, many times. Love the guy, so good luck with that, whatever he decides to do.
Yeah, he's obviously a really bona fide coach and got the national championship there at Texas, which they'll always be grateful for. Still, playing winning football, but it's just sort of so in the middle that it doesn't really, there's not really a pulse there now. You know what I mean? Like, you need somebody who's either going to take it to a different level or just break it down and build it back up. I think you're kind of spinning your wheels at 6, 7, 8, 9 wins, which, hey, maybe they'll regret getting rid of that, kind of like Texas did there for a little while, right? When they got a little bit spoiled and then they had the dip after him. But, I just kind of felt like you needed to change things up there. And so that's I think of most interest, not because of Mack Brown or whatever, your personal relationship and all that stuff, but I think it's interesting because of the fact that that's the biggest job that's now open.
No.
I mean, clearly the biggest job that's open in the country right now, and I don't know how many bigger jobs there will be based on sort of the trajectory that we're looking at right now of hot seats and whatnot. So, yeah, that's a good thing for Carolina to be the lead dog in a pack that might not have too many other dogs in it, and you'll be able to, have your fair share of people to choose from without much competition, it looks like.
And Kyle Whittingham, this was from after the week. He's kind of – I saw a couple of guys who covered Utah saying that they've really been – they've been kind of alert to how he has been in the last couple of weeks, how he has sounded, body language. You got to be careful about that. But said he will evaluate his future after the season, after this weekend. His decision will be about what's best for the program. They already have, of course, a coach in waiting. I don't know what he's going to do, but he's been a hell of a coach at Utah.
Yeah, and Morgan Scalley's the coach. I just wonder on the recruiting end of this, where the coach in waiting is usually it's like a 3 or 4 year thing. Well, Morgan Scalley, it's really a 1 or 2 year thing. So you have to kind of recruit everybody as co-head coaches, don't you? Because you have to say we want you to come here. So really you want to play for Morgan Scalley more than you want to play for Kyle Whittingham and hope that Kyle Whittingham is there if you really want to play for him.
I mean, he's been there 20 years, 20 years as head coach. And so, that's a long time. And looking at 20 plus next season, maybe that is it based on the way this season has gone. He's been there a really long time. He's already named his head coach in waiting. Simultaneously, they're also looking at new offensive coordinator, but is he going to be making that hire? That's what's going to have to be decided here pretty quickly. But I'm sure he'll have, a good amount of time to think about what his choice will be. Certainly not all that surprising based on the way this year has gone and just kind of the way he's been talked about by some of the people up there. Not like that they want him gone, but just that it does feel different. It does feel like maybe it's towards the end. It does feel like, hey, we've got to watch this situation a little bit closer. Like, that's been in the air now for a few weeks as they've struggled. That's a job that would also be a very interesting one, but it's not going to open up if it were to open up because you do have the head coach in waiting there, so they wouldn't join North Carolina in the pecking order, but would be a very notable move. Obviously, a guy leaves after that much success and 2 decades at a place as the head man, but we'll see. Maybe he decides to stick around, but I would not be shocked at all based on just everything if he did decide to move on after this year, just the way it's gone.
Scott Abel is the new head coach at Rice. He has been at Davidson, had a nice run there, took him to 3 different postseason appearances, 86 and 52 at Davidson over 7 years, 6-5 this year. Was also successful at Washington and Lee, took them to 3 Division III first-round playoff appearances. He is overall record if you look at the two together, 86 and 52 total. Davidson, he was 47 and 28. So he has been at a lot of the smaller type classifications, including high schools. And then all of a sudden, Washington and Lee, Davidson, and now he replaces the head coach now. No longer, Bloomquist is gone at Rice, and we'll try to get him on if we can next week around the time of National Signing Day.
That'll be interesting. He comes from Davidson. They're 500 in the Pioneer League right now. Never coached at the FBS level, but like if Rice feels like he's their guy, he's their guy. And we've seen some really good coaches come out of the FCS level, and we've seen really good coaches come out of the G5. North Carolina, Jamie Chadwell, please hook my man up. Anyway. That's the last I'll say about that. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens.
I doubt
That's the last I say about it today.
Yeah, okay.
Today.
All right. In fact, Kyle Visser came in the chat and said, in before Paul mentions Jamie Chadwell, and you were late, Kyle. Craig, anything on the Rice head coach?
No.
Okay.
I mean, good for him. I mean, good for them, but I don't have any real feelings. It's Rice. It's a difficult place to win. If he finds a way to do that, good on him. But, we'll see how that goes.
All right. Also, Houston, with one game left to go, former Baylor quarterback and quarterback's coach, Sean Bell, who was on with us last week, is the interim offensive coordinator as they play one more game against BYU this weekend. Kevin Barbay has been relieved of his duties by first-year head coach Willie Fritz. Yeah, the offense has struggled quite a bit this year. They had a couple of sparks along the way during the season, but just did not score at all on offense except the field goal last week in the loss to Baylor. And so there's Sean Bell, former Baylor quarterback and also assistant coach under Matt Rule, and Dave Aranda is now the interim offensive coordinator and passing game coordinator for one more game.
Well, I think, we talked yesterday about the need for them to change some things up. So there's a start, and I think personnel-wise they're going to have to make some big changes as well. But we'll see if Sean holds on to that or they go change it up in the offseason. Good for him to have this, opportunity here at the end of the year against BYU, no less, in Provo. So that's a fun challenge, but especially they may be playing for a Big 12 championship spot by the time that game finally kicks off. They'll definitely know by then, but happy for Sean, and something had to give with Houston's offense. I said this, multiple times yesterday that I was intrigued by what they were going to do, and here we are, their first big move, and it makes sense. That offense was absolutely atrocious this year.
Yeah, and I hope Sean gets to keep the job.
Well, maybe he will. I'm not going to be able to prove himself in 1 week, although beating BYU and having a nice offensive performance against their pretty good defense would be something. The Earl Campbell Tyler Rose Award, they're about to announce sometime later this week, like a lot of others, the semifinalist, and then, of course, there are finalists, and we have been voting throughout the week on various awards. We'll get to that. And Baron Morton, Texas Tech quarterback, is this week's award winner after a huge game, 401 yards, 4 touchdowns in an 8-point win against Oklahoma State this past weekend. Taj Brooks had another big game, whatever, but Baron Morton is the Earl Campbell Tyler Rose National Player of the Week.
Well, I mean, he had to throw a million touchdowns to keep up with the juggernaut offense of Oklahoma State, which look, Oklahoma State, to their credit, has thrown some big punches to try to get out of the doldrums here in the last few weeks, but good on Tech for holding that off, because sometimes you can just be like, how are we doing this again? Especially the way the season started against Abilene Christian. You maybe feel like that kind of thing is happening, or what happened against TCU. Like, here we go again, building a lead and then maybe almost losing it to a team that we think that we're better than and are better than. But, yeah, Baron Morton played really well in that game.
All right, now we continue with a couple of the others' notes in college football. How about the Big 12 reprimanding Arizona State for their rushing the field prematurely? And then, of course, took forever to clear the field. Issued a public reprimand and $25,000 fine for the storming incident. I'm not sure which one. And very fortunate ASU did not get a 15-yard penalty that would have set BYU up even closer in their territory after they stormed the field. And even Dillingham losing his mind on the officials, which you could understand. We got to be careful there. And this is becoming something that I saw where our good friend Pat Smith when somebody, Oklahoma even rushed the field, Nebraska rushed the field. He said that until you start to find these universities and programs real money, not $100,000 or $200,000, like $1 million to do it, then it really is never going to be something that is curtailed. But Arizona State, that's a minor fine and a public reprimand. They'll take it after their win against BYU.
Yeah, I don't think they're too worried about that. I think a donor's actually already paid it off if one tweet I saw was correct. Either way, it's not a lot of money, and Kenny Dillingham probably has that lying around. So that was easily taken care of, and, yeah, much less harsh punishment than what we've seen in the SEC, but they've had a few more warnings. So I think that's why theirs is a little bit pricier. Plus, it just means more, obviously. So I'm glad Arizona State got to celebrate that. Just hope they learned how to celebrate that the next time. But I know there was confusion because the scoreboard actually said 0, so they were under the impression it was 0. So that was just a big old mess they're going to have to sort out and be a little bit better about executing end-of-game stuff with the clock and all of that the next time they have that opportunity. But, yeah, I think I would have been rushing the field as well, given how big that game was for them. And you're glad to pay the fine in that circumstance, especially one that's not really much, just that $25K compared to the $250K for an SEC school.
All right, Kansas State head coach Chris Kleiman this week with his thoughts about the Big 12 being at a disadvantage because of the 9 conference games. Of course, there are some conferences that do have the 9, and then there are some that have been staying at 8. There's been thoughts they would move the 9. The SEC's talked about it, but nothing yet. And Kleiman's saying that it puts the Big 12 at a disadvantage.
Other teams can lose in other leagues, and it's that league's really good. We lose in this league, and this league stinks. And I don't understand that. As a conference, we need to get together and figure some things out, because for a bunch of teams to be 9-3 and us not get any of those things in the college football playoff, then we've got to cancel one of these games. I don't care what people say. We then go to 8 games in league play, or stay with 9 but play an FCS or play a group of 5. And I'd say, well, that would hurt you. I don't care. You say what you want. 10-2 looks better than 9-3. And we're going to visit at this year's conference meetings, and because we have to do things to benefit our league for the 12-team playoff, not to just benefit our league in general. And we need to be able to get 2 and 3 teams in the Big 12 or in the 12-team playoff. The carnage that you're seeing is going to allow for 1 most likely.
All right. I don't want them to drop from 9 to 8. I understand that there's some trying to maneuver a chess match or whatever you want to call it. I want to see everybody go to 9, not those who are at 9 drop to 8. It's hard sometimes because the conferences have become so large to keep some of the rivalries alive. I saw Chuck Cooperstein make a comment about Texas and A&M, and of course ticket prices, we'll have that in a second, it's been forever. But that's not just like there's some of those rivalries that are more algorithm or, well, we need to make that happen. And so I don't want to see the Big 12. I still loved it when they had 10 teams and everybody played it for everybody, but that's not the case, and it won't be anytime soon.
No, I just think that everybody needs to play 9 games. Now, look, if you had an NCAA commissioner that or a rule that said here, every conference has to play 9 conference games. We're all dealing with the same thing. That way 9 conference games is the standard, or every conference plays 8 conference games and that's the standard. They should not have to do different things to hit the same benchmarks, right? I understand that certain leagues are going to be better than others cyclically, but the fact that the SEC plays 8, I think the ACC doesn't play 9 yet. So you've got conferences that are not doing it, and then conferences that are. I think that needs to be agreed upon across all conferences.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's ridiculous that the quote-unquote conferences that are on the same level with each other don't play the same amount. And if you want to say, well, it's the Power 2, well, that still counts, doesn't it? Because they don't play the same amount either. So if you want to say Power 2, Power 4, it's ridiculous that leagues don't play the same amount of teams. And I think it's a really glaring thing when you look at this past week and you see all this talk about the SEC and the fight for the playoff and all that, and you look up and you look at the scoreboard and see who they're playing with 2 weeks left to play. They playing a bunch of big, massive games. Like A&M Texas is this weekend. Like that's a really big game, right? That's a really big game. But is that the case last week in the SEC? No. You had Tennessee going and beating up on. Gosh, let me go back and find this. These are the games last week in the SEC. And now it doesn't want to cooperate with me. But the point being,
Florida played Ole Miss. That's one of the bigger.
Yeah, that was. I mean, like, Kentucky and Texas, Alabama, Oklahoma was one of them. But you also had Tennessee, who's right there in the thick, beating UTEP. There's 2 weeks to go, and they're playing UTEP.
Yeah, there's about a 2 or 3 week stretch when they spread those out, don't they? Yeah.
You got South Carolina. They're sitting there. They're arguing about why they should be in the playoff, right? You saw that Bartholomew had his Hale Bartholomew, whatever his name is, had his whole, like, I'm not a hypothetical guy, but here's my hypothetical on why the SEC and South Carolina, my favorite team, deserves to be in. Who'd they play this past weekend, guys? Who'd they beat them? They played Wofford. There's 2 weeks left in the season. So, yeah, I mean, there's games that mattered this past weekend. Georgia played UMass. Like, that's what they're doing instead of playing a conference game. Oh, I know the argument. Oh, well, the conference is so tough. But it's like, dude, that's just a narrative that we buy now because we just assume that, like, it's every year it's like this is kind of the conversation we've had throughout the year. Like, every year they just by default are the greatest conference, right? It's like, but maybe some years they aren't. Maybe this is one of those years where their best teams are still the best, but, like, top to bottom, they're not the best. Or maybe they are the best again this year, but it's not necessarily the case every year. And so I think this whole, like, by default, we play one less game because our schedule, our 8 equals your 9. I think that's bullshit.
Yeah.
Like, and I think that the people, like, actually go along with that is also bullish. So, yeah, I'm totally with Chris Klieman. I think, what's going to inevitably happen here in about 3 weeks is once the games stop, we're going to start hearing about realignment again because people need content, and that's going to become a hot topic throughout the offseason because that's what the offseason is like. But on the one hand, while I agree with him, I also don't want to then go and entertain the idea of, like, let's go add UConn football and Oregon State football and just add a bunch more teams that just further dilute this thing. Or maybe that's what you need to do is just, like, the conference gets so big, it's like the Big Ten where the big teams hardly play each other now. So you all have your but, like, point being, something does have to give. Either you water it down so everybody has a seemingly easier schedule, or you knock a game down and you play more of what everybody else plays, and you just deal with the perception because guess what? You don't have the benefit of any perception anyways if you're the Big 12. You have a total lack of respect. So I don't think you're going to lose any further if you drop a conference game, but I don't know. I think it's food for thought, and you could definitely kick around some ideas. I don't know if there's, like, one clear-cut idea, but I do think he's on to something as far as they need to get together this offseason and figure out if what they're doing is the best way because it might not be this way every year, but this year has been a total and utter mess.
Does it matter? Somebody brought this up in the chat. Does it matter when you play your so-called pay-to-come-play-you game, whether early in the year or later in the year?
Well, I think when you're playing 4 and others are playing 3 and you get to play that one later in the year, I think that helps out a lot.
All right, thanks for the question. Curb Stomp. Yeah,
I mean, do y'all agree with
needs
that?
to stop putting these cupcakes so late.
I mean, everybody else is playing the stretch of their games, and you got, like, Oklahoma just beat Alabama. That's great, but the week prior, they had a total layup game. And so what does that do, though? What does that also do? I understand it's harder to win games in the SEC, but the conference has gotten so big that it's not like you're playing Georgia, Tennessee, Florida, all back-to-back-to-back. And with that game, I know some of those 4 non-cons are like playing Clemson for some teams or whatever, but it can also be beneficial to get you bowl eligible. Mm-hmm. So then you get to go the whole, like, we got 12 teams bowl eligible, and then that feeds into the whole overall conversation. So I think the way they've kind of massaged that conversation has been brilliant, and I think the Big 12 needs to figure out a way to do something the same, even though not, copy for copy, but yeah, I do think there's a benefit to being late in the year and you get to play Wofford before your big game against Clemson as opposed to playing, another team in your conference, but others may disagree.
I think what the Big 12 needs to also do, and I agree with a lot of what you're saying, is beat teams that you need to beat in the non-conference whenever you play them. Whether it's in bowl games, no matter if they didn't care about being there, doesn't matter, just beat them. And BYU beating Arkansas, of course, earlier this year. I know it's not Georgia or Alabama Alabama, Texas or whatever, but win those games if you possibly can.
Yeah, I mean, that would definitely go a long way to help. And point being, my thing is they've got to do something. They do need to sit down and have a conversation about what is the best way to move forward. So I'm in full agreement with Kleiman on that. I do think There are a lot of different perceptions depending on where you look, and there has for a long time been this whole, well, the SEC is just tougher, so they get one less game, and I kind of feel like that's kind of garbage, and the whole reason they don't play the game is just because they want more money. That's the whole reason why they're not playing the extra conference game, is because they've said it flatly, like, give us more money and we'll play it. But until we get more money, we're not doing it. It's not doing it because they're doing it because they don't get enough money for it. That's why they don't do it. So, and I'm not just trying to focus on them. They're not the only one that doesn't play the 9 conference games, but they're the ones that you do think of when you think of like these late season, week 12 and you're playing Tarleton State or whatever, when you could be playing a conference game. So yeah,
and I'm not sure if they've been doing that for 30 years or 80 years or for in the last 10 or 12. One of the things about it, if you're the SEC, you have 4 games, so-called cupcakes or bye games, or FCS or whoever it's going to be, and then you have to win just a couple of conference games. I've brought this up before. When Art Briles at Baylor early on, when they had been in a decade and a half drought of a bowl game, they played terrible non-conference games. And they won, I think, most of them. And then they had to just win a couple of Big 12 games. And it still took a couple of years before they could do that in 2010 when they finally got to a bowl game. Nebraska's offensive coordinator, Dana Holgorsen, with maybe one of the lines of the day as they play Iowa on Friday evening in Iowa City. Saying that on facing Iowa, I remember my second year at Tech, 2001, we played Iowa in the Alamo Bowl, and it's the same thing now, the same scheme, the same coach. Iowa won that game against Tech 19-16. That is about continuity, even though Kirk Ferentz has had to make some changes, including his son, as the offensive coordinator.
Yeah, I mean, it is, but you still got to beat it, and it's the same coach, it's the same scheme, but they do have a coordinator that's done a lot better this year in Tim Lester. And Nebraska, Smokey, I don't need to tell you that they've had monster problems with Iowa, especially of late. But this would be another big monkey that they could shake off their back, right?
They beat them 2 or 3 years ago, but they've also had some disastrous endings and they've been thumped, just like the Wisconsin drought. But they beat them a couple of years ago, which was, I think, even kind of a surprise. But that's Holgorsen saying 23 years later, it's pretty much all the same. That's not saying anything negative about Kirk Ferentz. To me, that's a compliment that they've had that kind of continuity, and they have changed up with what's going on with their offense. Also, here is right now, and this will go up and down, the Texas and A&M game Saturday evening at Kyle Field. First time they've played since the last time they played, which was 2011. Then A&M went to the SEC. The cheapest get-in price, and this can vary, $741. The average purchase price, $1,079. Now, I have seen where tickets are at $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 because some people can pay that amount based on where the tickets are. That game coming up, that's why they should play every year. They haven't since 11. Texas won on a last-second field goal before A&M did bolt to the SEC.
Yeah, it's nuts. I wish I could go to that game. I wish I could go. But, some of us have to, put a roof over our heads.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough to get a ticket, I think, even if you had the money, though. Mm-hmm. Like, that's the thing is, unless you just want to keep upping the ticket price to where if you're good, pay $10,000 for one, I'm sure you can find one. But they're probably few and far between, and the ones that are out there right now are massively expensive. So, yeah, I don't think this is much of a surprise at all. This game's been a long time coming, and it's a really big deal personally to a lot of people. And it's also just going to be an incredible type of pageantry that is very rare. I mean, there's pageantry draped all over college football every Saturday, but to have a rivalry reignited in-state, in the SEC, where they've never played before, all that jazz that comes with this particular rebirth of this rivalry, it's a one-of-a-kind, once-in-a-lifetime type of a deal. So, yeah, it's a once-in-a-lifetime type ticket price as well.
And then next year, the game will be back at Memorial Stadium, DK Royal Memorial Stadium, and both stadiums, of course, over 100,000. In fact, Saturday might be as much as 110,000. Here's something that I didn't know. Alabama and Auburn. A weird stat. And then I went back, and of course, because I'm weird about this, Alabama has never beaten Auburn in Tuscaloosa unless Nick Saban was the head coach. Now, let me also give you some history there. By the way, Alabama in Tuscaloosa, 7-7 against the Tigers. All of those wins when Saban was the head coach, including the first time in 2008. They played in Birmingham at Legion Field forever, back twice in the 1800s, 1890s. Then they played from 1904 to 1988 in Birmingham. And then they played 3 years in Tuscaloosa, in Birmingham. So they have played in Birmingham 53 times among the many times that they've played, which is 88. They played in Montgomery 4 times from 1893 to 1903. Auburn at home in Auburn is 10-7 against Alabama. However, Tuscaloosa, no one other than Nick Saban, and a lot of it because of the long drought, has won a game, Alabama, in their home stadium at Bryant-Denny Stadium, except when he's been the head coach. The first time. They played 6 times prior to that. So it's not like they've played 60 times, but 6 times prior to that. And so that's a weird stat there.
Yeah, I mean, I when I looked at that, and then you reminded me about Legion Field. Yeah, I wonder. I mean, I guess it's better to be home and home, but I wonder if there's people that do miss the Birmingham once in a while.
Texas OU, Florida, and Georgia.
Yeah.
And there, of course, Army, Navy have had many neutral sites, and there's some others like that too. This one forever was a neutral site at Legion Field in Birmingham. So there we are. Alabama leads that series 50-37 and also won. And there were some bizarre games, as you know, including the kick 6 when Auburn won a game back. I think that was in 2010. I don't remember exactly when.
The kick 6?
When was the kick 6?
That was way after 2010. That was like 2018 or something like that.
You think so?
It was definitely way later than 2010.
Okay.
2013. Okay.
2013. Okay.
Yeah.
So 2010, Auburn beat Alabama by 1.
Makes me. I mean, I knew it wasn't as late as 2010.
Well,
but
it's only a 3-year difference, but you're right, though.
But it makes me feel way older to think that was only 2013 now as well. Like, that's time flies.
Shehan Jeyarajah from CBS Sports. We'll have Colt McCoy, Lance Leipold, all of that and more. Thank you very much. We appreciate your time whenever you give us that time, that access. And, oh, by the way, please hit the like button if you don't mind. And if you haven't subscribed, we'd appreciate that. This is 365 Sports. Stonewood Dental in Robinson, Texas. Oh, I mean, that's not what I was told. Stonewood Dental in Robinson, Texas with Dr. Steve Childress, my dentist. And I am so glad that he is. I got to really get to know him. I got to know him before 2020, but that was the first time that I went to his office. And that's when he had the, I guess you could say, truth serum, scared straight about my dental work. And a lot of it is true. A lot of it became reality. He predicted that. But he has been there with me from start to finish, and I still have work to do, but he has given me the reason to understand it's not just about brushing your teeth and, oh, you're going to the dentist, or you don't want to go because you know you haven't taken care of your dental work. You're going to start flossing the week before the dental work. No, he has gotten me scared straight, literally, with my dental work. I appreciate him. Multiple dentists, great staff, tech specialists, and, of course, hygienists that help you out, clean your teeth, and also give you what you need to get to the next time you do it. If you don't do your work, you're going to go to the dentist not just to get teeth cleaning, but much, much more. Dr. Steve Childress and his great staff, Stonewood Dental, my dentist in Robinson, Texas.
Baylor Scott & White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics, the team physicians for Baylor Athletics, diagnosing and treating all sports-related injuries, including concussions. These specialists also provide orthopedic services for athletes and non-athletes alike, whether it's knee or shoulder pain, a wrist injury, orthopedic spine care, and even an arthritis and total joint clinic. Trust the doctors Baylor Athletics trust. Baylor Scott & White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics wants to get you back in the game.
Camille Johnson Realtors guide you seamlessly through the process of buying your dream home or selling your current one. Commercial, farm and ranch, or residential, Camille Johnson Realtors can smoothly and successfully lead you through any transaction. With a team of 28 experienced agents who are excited about serving you, Camille Johnson Realtors services the entire greater Waco area. If you're in the market to buy or sell, contact Camille Johnson Realtors, 104 Midway Center in Woodway, or find them online at www.camillejohnson.com. Camille Johnson Realtors, elegant, charming, warm. Welcome home.
Petty Clinic Men's Healthcare in Woodway is now proud to offer you men an exceptional weight management body sculpting product called semaglutide, also known as Ozempic or Wegovy. Semaglutide is an FDA-approved weight management medication. Once-a-week injections of this powerful medication offers an average body fat weight loss of 20% within the first year of treatment. In addition to body sculpting, semaglutide also normalizes blood sugars and has the clinical research proof of reducing blood pressure, cholesterol, stroke, and heart attack risk. If you're like most men and you have stubborn fat that will just not respond to typical diets and exercise, then help is finally here. Semaglutide, affordable, highly effective. Google search Petty Clinic Waco and reach out to the Petty Clinic team today for a free consultation with Dr. Petty to see if semaglutide is right for you. Go to pettycliniclowt.com.
It's time to score big savings at the Kickoff to Savings event on GMC trucks at Richard Carr GMC. Take the winning drive with the Texas Truck MVP. GMC Sierra is the best truck on the road. Save $9,000 on 2024 GMC Sierra SLT models in stock with 2010 or newer approved trade-in. Plus, qualified buyers get 1.9% financing and no payments for 90 days. See dealer for details. Save big and score your deal at the Kickoff to Savings event at Richard Carr GMC.
Richard Carr, they have the truck for you.
El Conquistador Restaurants are a very proud sponsor of the Midway Panthers, have been owned and operated by the Gonzalez family since 1969. El Conquistador is recognized annually as a local favorite with their fast and friendly service. Dine in or order takeout and enjoy your favorite Tex-Mex items as well as several traditional menu items. Catering is also available with 3 locations to serve you: Waco, Belmead, and Hillsboro. The Gonzalez family thanks you in Waco and the surrounding area for your continued support of 55 years in business. Go Panthers!
Parenting is full of surprises.
You never know what to expect.
So after our son was born, I called my Texas Farm Bureau insurance agent to set up a life insurance policy in case something happened to me.
Sawyer is now 2.
And we'll soon have a sister. There's no one else I would trust with protecting my family.
Stop by and see our agents at one of our 3 McLennan County locations.
Coverage and discounts are subject to qualifications and policy terms and may vary by situation.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com. This segment is brought to you by Michelob Ultra. It's only worth it if you enjoy it. Containing only 95 calories and 2.6 carbs.
Shehan Jeyarajah joins us from CBS Sports. So much going on. Hey, man, what's up? Good-looking jacket. Look like a football coach at Media Day, by the way. Good to have you on. Last week of the regular season, still chaos in many ways, and we'll get to that. But your thoughts about North Carolina and moving on from Mack Brown?
Yeah, Mack Brown never quite makes it easy, does it? Obviously, this has a lot of comparisons to his exit at Texas as well. And look, I get it. I mean, Mack Brown loves coaching football. He loves working with players. He loves developing teams. But, I looked at the numbers last week. He's the only coach in the FBS older than 70 years old. He's actually one of 2 who are sitting head coaches older than 65 years old. So I get it. North Carolina kind of decided now was the time to go in a different direction. And the thing is, too, about North Carolina is that they get the opportunity in this cycle to probably be the best job available. So they're going to have their first pick of any candidate that they want in this cycle. And I think that, honestly, for North Carolina, it might have been too good to pass up.
For their next coach, where do you see them, what pools do you see them fishing in?
Well, it's such an interesting question because we don't really have a good idea of how this new coaching carousel is going to look post House v NCAA and also post expanded college football playoff. I think of, let's think of some teams that could be in the college football playoff, right? Like, I don't think Rhett Lashley at SMU is going to be a candidate, but let's say that you're North Carolina and you wanted him. Well, he might be coaching well into December and January before we even know. Even think about it from the perspective of if you want to hire a coordinator from one of these teams that's in the college football playoff. I think it's going to make the timeline really interesting. Now, I don't necessarily think that they have to go that far. I think that there are some options for them on the table. The number one option that comes to mind for me is John Sumrall, the head coach at Tulane. Now, Tulane also might be in the college football playoff. They're going to be right on that line, but I think that he would be a fantastic fit. He's coached in the South for most of his career. He's a former Kentucky linebacker, led Troy to 2 conference championships as well. I think he'd be an immediate fit. Jamie Chadwell over at Liberty would be another name that I think that people would want to keep an eye on. He's had tons of success, first at Charleston Southern and FCS, up to Coastal Carolina, and now at Liberty. But really, I think they're going to have a wide net to really look for their next choice. And the big thing is I think they're just probably not going to hire as old as they've had.
Shehan, we were talking about this a few minutes ago. Chris Kleiman had some comments about the Big 12 and the fact that the conference needs to get together this offseason and discuss their scheduling and discuss ways that they can, I guess, better position their teams to try and get postseason success. For example, the SEC or the ACC play a less conference game, right? And maybe they do something like that. Does anything come to mind for you? And do you think there's anything the Big 12 can theoretically do, come up with in off-season meetings that could better their chances outside of their teams just winning more on the field?
Yeah, it's interesting. It's a really interesting question, right? Because with a 16-team league, like from my perspective, I think it would be a mistake to have less conference games, to get to play each other less times. I think that something that maybe is worth thinking about is trying to find ways, I guess, to normalize the schedules a little bit. Something that's been proposed is like pod scheduling, where maybe you have sort of consistent 3 teams that you work with and maybe different pods play each other. And that way you kind of just get a little bit more of a distribution of teams. One of the biggest things, and I think to the ACC specifically in this case, which obviously has 17 teams, you've got Miami, SMU, and Clemson fighting for the end of the year, and none of them have played each other. I actually think that that's a flaw in the system in many ways and not necessarily a benefit. The other piece, too, though, is I think that you look at this Big 12 and this year, I mean, part of it is that there just isn't a team or two that clearly was able to make it through an entire slate. Like, I look back a couple years ago, and it's not just Oklahoma, who obviously has had some really good teams, but TCU made it through undefeated. We've seen multiple teams play schedules like what the Big 12 teams have had this year and go 8-1 and have a chance to be there at the very end. I think that at least with this 2024 season, for a variety of reasons, it's just been a period of change in the Big 12, whether it's quarterbacks turning over, head coaches turning over, obviously a bunch of new teams coming in. I don't necessarily know that that means that there's an existential issue with the way that the schedules are structured, but obviously we'll have the 2025 season as well to try to figure that out.
Shehan, when you look at the Big 12, with now what we know with 1 game left, and BYU and obviously Arizona State, Iowa State are the ones who, those last 2 are the ones in the driver's seat. Can any of those 3 be the 4th seed among the automatic qualifiers ahead of Boise State?
Yeah, I think that whoever comes out of the Big 12, if it's one of those currently 2 lost teams, I think they'll be okay to be the 4th seed. Again, we'll learn more about these teams during the rankings tonight, but if you look at the AP poll, all of them are in the top 25 right now. A lot of them are in the top 20. And in order to make the Big 12 title game and win the Big 12, they'll probably have to play another top 20 team and get another win in order to do that. So I feel like they should be okay. Now, Arizona State is the team that I absolutely think will be the best positioned of the bunch after going and beating BYU last week. I expect them to firmly be in the top 15. Iowa State, probably in the top 20. But, look, it's going to be pretty close as well. I mean, Boise State is playing really well. I'm fascinated to see where exactly they end up. But I do think that when the totality of the resumes come together and you have that conference championship game, I do think ultimately that the Big 12 will manage to get that 4 seed.
A&M and Texas play this week. There's a very real scenario where A&M could make it to the conference title game and get a 4th loss. Do you think that Greg Sankey will have to back off his getting there as reward enough thing if A&M has a fourth loss after that?
Well, I think that the issue won't necessarily be that a 3-loss A&M will be kicked out, because I don't think that a 3-loss A&M, even before that fourth loss, would make it into the field, especially with their relative lack of wins. I mean, you look, their two big wins were against LSU and Missouri, two teams who might not be ranked whenever we have the CFP rankings tonight. So I think that it's more about what their resume would be prior than necessarily what would happen in that game. I think the bigger issue, and this is something as well with the Big 12, certainly when you look at with the Big 10 and the ACC as well, I don't think that these conferences have a very good way to create conference championship games that make sense. Because look at the SEC just specifically. I mean, if Texas A&M wins that game, they're probably next week going to head into the rankings as like the 5th ranked SEC team in the CFP rankings, but they'll be in the number 2 spot playing for, of course, an SEC championship. I don't think that them losing that game and getting knocked out is an indictment of conference championship games. I think it's an indictment of the SEC not having a good way to put their 2 best teams in the conference championship. Now, look, with 8 conference games, and you mentioned it, I mean, the Big 12 plays 9 and the Big 10 plays 9. I think that you're going to see this very often. You're going to see a lot of years where you have 5, 6, 7, 6-2 teams who are maybe of similar quality, and you just don't know who's going to come out of it. So I think that ultimately this is a problem with the SEC's creation of a conference championship, and not necessarily the fact that a conference championship game exists.
What do you think is the risk for Texas if they lose this game? Do they fall out of the playoff? Where do you kind of see them get positioned as a result if that were to happen?
Well, I don't think they will, but it's largely because we've seen so much movement on the back end of the SEC. If we don't see Ole Miss and Alabama and even Texas A&M lose a third game, I think that Texas would be at much more risk of getting left out. I mean, they'd have essentially no good wins heading into the field, and of course they would have multiple losses at that point against the 2 quality opponents they would have faced on their schedule. Now, with the 10-2 Texas, that obviously rates really well in some of these advanced stats, and you look at just their overall performance has been really good. I think that they'll still be in, but I also do think if they lose this game to Texas A&M, you're looking at their resume as the College Football Playoff Committee and saying, I don't necessarily know how it compares to some of these top teams. I think they'd be, maybe a 10 or an 11 seed. I think they'd be treated more like Indiana than they necessarily would even like Penn State or Ohio State. So I do think they'd make the field, but it wouldn't look pretty for them.
So in terms of this rivalry being back after all of these years, I don't know where you were in 2011. I know you were very young, younger than me for sure. But my gosh, Shehan, this has been a really long time coming, man. Just what are your thoughts on this rivalry being back, the excitement that it's built up with both of them being pretty good, and just, having this back in the state of Texas as much as anything else?
Well, that was my senior year of high school, so I jumped over to Baylor and met you guys a year after that. But this for us, I mean, my family was not a college football family, but my mom grew up in Austin. She went to UT for a couple of years, and I had some other family that went to UT who still lived in Austin. So this was the game that we always had on, even as people who didn't care about college football. And I'll say I'm working on a story right now for CBSSports.com that'll be released on Thursday, and it's been really cool for me to get to go back and talk to some of the legends of this game, guys like Quan Cosby, guys like Stephen McGee. And, I think that it's just such a special game for so many reasons. I mean, it is in so many ways like a state championship game of the state of Texas. And whether or not you actually went to these schools, and I mean, that obviously I didn't, I went to Baylor, but like, you kind of have your pull one way or another. You kind of have Texas is obviously the metro cosmopolitan school. Texas A&M, it's much more the rural blue collar type school. And I think that when you're growing up in the state like I did in the DFW Metroplex, like you get pulled to a side. And I think that this game coming back is so good for the sport, so good for college football. It's how college football should be. I don't love conference realignment. This is like the one benefit of it is that we get this game back, along with BYU Utah also, by the way. But I do think that that ultimately, like this is going to be such a big moment. Also, the other piece of this too is that it's very rare that Texas and Texas A&M play and are both good at the same time. Like when you look at history, there's been very few years that both teams have something to play for. I think it was 1975 was the last time that both teams played with double-digit win seasons. And there's a chance that, of course, this happens this year. And what we do know for certain is it will be a play-in game to the SEC championship game and maybe an opportunity to get into the college football playoffs. So it's a huge one. It's one of the biggest that we've ever seen, and I'm very excited to have it back.
Yeah, no, they've never even been mediocre at the same time in the same league. Like, honestly, like, neither team has been, like, one team is good, one team is bad. Like, they've never been just average at the same time. Shehan, when you look around, like, the teams that are going to get pushed out, like the Alabama is probably going to get pushed out now and all that, who do you think would have the, outside of the Big 12, would have the most leg to stand on when it comes to the CFP and being just right there on the outside looking in?
Well, with all the losses, like, I'm not going to feel all that bad for anybody who gets left out this year. I mean, the bubble is as wide open as I think we've seen in a little while. I mean, I do look at, maybe a team like Clemson actually will be really interesting. They're going to be a 2-loss potentially ACC team. I'm curious how the committee treats them if they beat South Carolina, who's kind of the hot team in media circles right now to talk about. I do also think that the way that things will work out for the Big 12, it's just going to be unfortunate for them. I mean, if BYU doesn't lose this past week, if Colorado doesn't lose before that, we're potentially looking at a Big 12 that has multiple teams that are capable of contending for the college football playoff. And really in the past, 3 weeks, a lot of those teams have fallen off, even though I think they're of the quality of playing in the college football playoff. So those would be the first ones that come to mind. I mean, look, if you're Alabama, you lost a third game against a 6-5 Oklahoma team. I don't feel bad for you. If you're Ole Miss, you lost early in the season to Kentucky. I just think that that so many of these teams have picked up extra losses. Actually, one other team that I'll throw out there as well that I'd feel a little bad for would be Army. And, look, obviously their schedule is not all that special, and they got destroyed by Notre Dame, but, there are teams that they are better than in between who they played on their schedule and Notre Dame. Notre Dame, obviously one of the best teams in the country. And if they are potentially an AAC champion at 12-1, who'd have to beat Tulane, by the way, who's a really good team, I think that would be a team that would have at least some qualm as well.
Shehan, one more thing, and we appreciate it. Your alma mater is on fire, and they're playing a team that's won games against top 25 teams, and Lance Leipold's going to join us in a couple of hours at Kansas. Your thoughts about what Dave Aranda has done to dig his career at Baylor and also this program out of a ditch?
Yeah, it's pretty incredible. I mean, obviously we heard in the preseason that Dave Aranda came to the administration and said, here are the specific things I'm going to do, and here's how they're going to work. And almost everything that he said has essentially come true. I mean, they've completely revamped the offense. They've revamped recruiting, which I think is an underrated part of all of this. There's so much energy right now around the program. One of my first signs that I felt like things might work was pulling Jake Spavital away from Cal and pulling Keenan Hall away from SMU. Those are two guys who did not have to leave the jobs that they were at, but decided to join Dave Aranda at Baylor. I think that was a huge testament to how much belief there was among people in the industry of what he had a chance to accomplish here. But when you look even just from that moment of going 2-4 and obviously losing that Colorado game on essentially a Hail Mary, they have mentally kept it together in a way that I could not have anticipated. I've been so impressed with what they've done. I've been joking all week. I think that Baylor versus Kansas might be the battle for who the best team in the Big 12 is right now. But I do think that these are two teams who should feel really proud of what they've accomplished this season. And, again, this is a tough matchup going against Kansas with the way that they're playing. I mean, I don't think it would be a negative at all to lose this game. But I think that Baylor's going to have a chance, and I think it's going to be an extremely fun one in Waco.
Have a great weekend, man. There's some bangers coming up. Of course, A&M and Texas, one of those, and South Carolina, Clemson's a hell of a game with a lot of implications there. Shehan, thank you very much for your time. We appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
All right, Shehan Jeyarajah with us, CBS Sports on Tuesdays at 3:40. Coming up next, a legend led Texas to the national championship game against Nick Saban in Alabama in 2009. Left and retired as the all-time winner as far as wins as a quarterback in college football history. That's been surpassed by Kellen Moore, and I think even now that's been surpassed too. Colt McCoy on the Mack Brown news today, but also because of Texas and A&M, and this is 365 Sports. The Baylor Club, proud partner with this show, 365 Sports, and our website, the umbrella of Sikkim 365. Excited to offer you, our listeners, exclusive deals at the Baylor Club. Ask for the Sikkim 365 membership application to receive 2 months of membership for free, or stop by the Baylor Club inside McClain Stadium off MLK and 35 for a complimentary Sikkim 365 VIP tour. You can also book a membership lunch by calling the Baylor Club. Look for their number online or also Facebook. These offers available exclusively for those a part of Sikkim365.com and 365 Sports.
Pleasant. It's different than any other dentist office. I really feel like they care. And it's not that you're here for 2 hours waiting on someone to take care of you. It's quick and easy, and I bring my kids, and my kids love being here too. They really love the treasure box. Staff is really nice and accommodating, real friendly. You feel more like home. It's not sterile looking. Everybody has their own personalized rooms with decorations and decor, and they'll even have a blanket for you when it's cold. I've recommended people to actually come here, and they are patients now. I really love it here. It feels like family.
Hi, I'm Mark Stewart with Bird Colgan Ford. Join us for our Black Friday sale, where over $16 million in inventory is on sale right now. This month only, get a 24 F-150 for under $500 a month, or a 24 Bronco, only $470 a month. Selection and save all month long at Bird Colgan Ford during our Black Friday sales event. Visit us anytime at bkford.com or come by and experience better at BK Ford.
I'll never get used to this. I'll never get used to this. This is how I wanna live. Forever we'll be singing like, oh, I'll never get used to this. I'll never get used to this. I'll never get used to this. This is how I wanna live. Forever we'll be singing like, oh, I'll never get used to this.
If your business is like most, you need things done quickly. But if you're still tying your critical applications together on multiple shared public networks, you've probably been feeling the slowdown. And that's no good for business. A private UPN fiber network can get you and your business moving at the speed of light. Whatever you need, we can build it. Internet, Metro Ethernet, Waves, dark fiber. We deliver custom private networks and are focused on business customers only. Our next generation 100% fiber optic infrastructure offers you low latency and ultra scalable bandwidth with speeds up to 100 gigabit to run your critical applications. Your connection won't be limiting your performance anymore. It's diverse and scalable, so it can grow and change as your business grows and changes. And with a secure carrier-grade private network, you'll have all the reliability you need. Contact UPN today to learn more. Fast just got faster.
This is 365 Sports.
The 3 o'clock hour is sponsored by Waco Custom Marketplace. Meats, sweets, Texas treats, and a cut above the rest. 425 Lake Air Drive, Waco.
All right, we're working on Colt McCoy, Baylor. And, of course, we have Kansas coming up just in case. We are off after this show the rest of the week with Thanksgiving break. But we're back on Saturday morning with our Baylor and Kansas pregame show at 9 o'clock here on 365 Sports. They kick off at 11 o'clock, and we're joined by the legendary former Texas Longhorn. I don't think he's ever former Texas Longhorn quarterback, Colt McCoy, preparing for another broadcast this week. Colt, thank you so much for being a part of the show. Well, I had you on to discuss A&M in Texas, and we'll get to that. But what are your thoughts today with Mack Brown having one more game left at North Carolina and the impact, the obvious impact on your career in life?
Yeah, I mean, that's a tough one. I obviously love Coach Brown, love his wife, love what he did for me in my career, and I don't know all the ins and outs of what's going on there, but there's not anybody that I've played for that I care about as much as I care for Coach Brown, and he's been a difference maker at North Carolina and Texas and anywhere he's been, and I just love him to death and hate that.
Colt, you were a huge part of this rivalry with A&M, and how much did you, just as an alum of somebody who had a legendary stamp on it, miss watching this game?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a fan now. I mean, I was driving to work today, and there was an A&M flag, and then a Texas flag, and then an A&M flag, and then another Texas. So I just think that this game runs deep, and there's bragging rights involved, and so happy that it's back, and what it means to this day. Look, I've got tons of Aggie friends. I mean, in my family, it's just I think, and I'm not the only one. I mean, everywhere I go, there's houses divided, and the buzz and surrounding this football game and what this means to the state, and the fact that it has so many implications. I mean, there's a lot riding on this game for both schools. I mean, you get a chance to go to the SEC championship, whoever wins this game. So, man, I'm pumped. I'm thrilled. I'm happy that it's back, and I hope it never leaves.
Cole, you mentioned you got a lot of A&M folks that you know. Were there a couple of A&M players or even in the pros, A&M guys that maybe if you were going to talk trash, they were like first on the speed dial, or just the guys you regularly kind of cut up with when it came to A&M in Texas?
Yeah, I talk my fair share. There's no doubt. You played against a bunch of A&M guys through the years, especially as you move on to the NFL. Von Miller, the Bennett brothers. And they're just it's a great program. I think that the rivalry, the in-state. One of the things I loved about Texas getting to go to the SEC was the fact that you really get three of your biggest rivals back. You get to play Oklahoma. That's never going to change in the Cotton Bowl, which is probably the first game you circle. And then you get the old Southwest Conference rivalry back with Arkansas. We took care of business there. And then now you get to play your in-state rival, the old Aggies. And, the fact that happens now that we're in the SEC, I mean, that was reason number one why I was excited to make the move over. And, this game coming back after 13 years, I mean, I've missed it. Everybody's missed it. So, I don't know if there'll be a TV in Texas that's not tuned into this one Saturday night. Yeah,
and there, of course, was a long drought where they didn't play, and I think maybe even egos or whatever were a part of that after Texas A&M went to the SEC. It sounds like you're thrilled. Do you hate that they didn't play for that long, or do you also understand why they didn't play for that long?
No, I don't understand, man. I hate it. Okay. That's one of those games that that you grew up watching. Everybody did, and I was a kid. I remember Thanksgiving together with your family, and then you watched the game, and that's what you did. And so it's been brutal not to have that competition, not to have that edge in recruiting. Just for all the different reasons. I mean, it's a very fun game to be a part of. And look, Kyle Field's a hard place to play. I mean, it's one of the loudest places I've played, especially in college. And I don't know that this game, these tickets have been sold out for a long time. So it's going to be loud. It's going to be crazy. A lot on the line for both teams. But I mean, more than anything, as a fan now and being able to participate in that game 4 times, man, I'm pumped for everybody, for the players especially. I mean, the guys that didn't get to play in this game over the last several years. I'm sure they're frustrated, but the fact that it's back, the fact that we get to keep it now is special. And I hope that we're not in a situation where we're not playing each other ever again.
What was it like? Because your brother was the quarterback and won the last one. I mean, the very last one, and that game was, a heart in your throat kind of a game. What was it like for you on the outside of that, watching your family have to play in that one, which is so intense as well?
Yeah, I remember Case, getting pinballed down the field and trying to get Justin Tucker in the field goal range and them capping it off. That was obviously pretty cool as a big brother to watch that. I mean, listen, this will be the first time since 2004 McCoy's not playing in this game. How crazy is that?
Wow. Yeah, that's crazy.
Wow, that is, yeah.
What, did I stunt you guys on that one?
No.
I guess like the last one, yeah.
I was trying to process that, actually, like how that worked for that long a period of time.
Colt's talking trash to us. That's
No. I think, listen, it's, there's nothing more than, as a former player, I love than rivalry games, and in college, it doesn't get any better than this. Last week I got to call the USC UCLA game. That was fun. You watch all these other the in-state rivals, Florida State, Alabama, Auburn. Then you got games like Michigan, Ohio State. Like, all these rivalry games at the end of the year are special. And I think that's what makes college football so much fun. I mean, there's animosity here. There's some pretty deep hatred here. You don't ever see a guy play at Texas A&M and come over and play at Texas, or vice versa, right? Like, you got to pick. And, that's what makes it fun. And, I'll have a bunch of my, A&M buddies, on a text thread Saturday night comes around, cause it's fun. It's a rivalry, and there's bragging rights at stake. And, that's what makes, college football so special. And I'm just so glad it's back.
Colt, you mentioned the high points of being back or being in the SEC was those rivalries returning in many ways. But what have been your impressions of seeing how this schedule has played out, and your impressions of these Longhorns, what you've seen up to this point? Obviously, sitting there with a pretty nice record. Playoff seems like it's right there for the taking, and maybe the SEC championship as well. Hard to expect too much more outside of just that loss to Georgia. So what have you thought about what all you've seen over the last several weeks?
Yeah, we didn't play good against Georgia at all. I mean, there's a lot of things they didn't do well in that game, and they might have a chance to play them again and get a second crack at them. But what I love about this team is our defense. We're pretty stout. And you look at sort of stats throughout the year. I mean, we're pretty much at the top of the SEC when it comes to total defense. Ranked number 1 against passing yards, scoring, not giving up a ton of rushing yards. And so, the stat that I keep going to is our secondary. We're second in the country. We've got 17 interceptions by 11 different players, right? And that causes problems for a young quarterback. And so I think, going into this game, if you're Texas on offense, you got all these playmakers, and you ran the ball well last week against Kentucky, do a lot of things nicely. Don't ruin the game. Don't turn it over. Our defense is poised to and ready to play, against a team like A&M, and they'll keep you in the game and just let the game come to you. I think that's the biggest thing for Texas. And we talk about rivalry games. I like to always say, play with emotion, but don't get emotional. Right? This is a game full of emotions. It's going to be there. As soon as you walk out onto the field and the Corps of Cadets is marching around the stadium and everybody's booing you, and you're going to feel that. There's going to be some emotion there, but you can't get too emotional in the game. You got to just let the game come to you, play one play at a time, sort of lock in. And so you don't need a rah-rah speech or too many cups of coffee to get going in this one. You'll feel it the moment you walk out there. So it's going to be awesome.
Got a highlight. I want to play it for you. I hope you could hear it through the phone. But, Garrett, this is the last time that you played A&M. You guys won, and you had a monster game. And here's part of the highlights.
McCoy keeps it again. And Colt McCoy racing up the middle of the field. Gone.
You had 304 yards passing, 4 scores, 175 yards rushing, and a touchdown. You were a dual threat guy, no doubt about it. Do you remember that play just like vividly, like many of the other ones you had?
Yeah, I mean, I hadn't remembered that. In fact, somebody sent me that. Maybe it was John Bianco, our SID, a couple weeks ago when they were starting to talk about this game. And he was like, "What were you doing at the end of that run?" And I was like, "What do you mean?" And I went back and watched it. And, this is a rivalry game. Somebody got my phone number the night before the game. And, we don't even stay in College Station. We stayed out in Lake Conroe. Just so nobody pulls the fire alarm, you don't get food poisoning, all the little tricks that rivalry games come with, and so somebody had got my number, and I'm sitting in a team meeting, and my phone just starts blowing up, and it's calls, and it's students and frats at A&M, or so it got loose somehow, and like all night long. I mean, I had hundreds of calls and texts like, "We're gonna kill you," all the things. I mean. And so after I scored that run, I start like acting like the football's a phone and like, "Call me again, call me again." And I was like, I usually don't show that much emotion. I just told you, like, you want to play with emotion, but you don't want to get too emotional. At that point, I felt like we were kind of in control of that game, and that was kind of funny. But looking back, it's like I don't know if anybody there knew what I was talking about, but I sure did, and that's what makes it fun.
Were you playing a little angry that day then?
Hey, I think we returned a kick late in the game. I think it was like maybe Marquise returned a kick late in the game, and I remember standing on the sidelines being so mad. I'm always happy when somebody scores or returns a kick that you usually win the game when that happens. But I wanted to go back out there and keep carving them up. I was like, no, fall down. Like, let me go back out there one more time. But it was fun.
Colt, obviously you had an amazing career, and now you're in the broadcast business. And I've read some of the stories that what you have mentioned about moving into the broadcast booth. It's a tough transition. It's not as easy as some people think. Tom Brady, his first broadcast, he struggled a little bit. I know you've mentioned what you went through. How much now more comfortable do you feel?
Yeah, let me tell you, it's tough. It's not, playing football, you're playing quarterback, you do your series and you come back to the sidelines and you look at the iPad and you see all the, looks and coverages they're showing you, and you try to make a plan. You go back out and get, 8 or 9 series a game. And, now being in the booth, you got to call both sides. You got to call offense, you got to call defense, you got to call special teams. You got to know all these guys' names. You sort of got to, talk a little strategy and scheme on both sides and what you're seeing, and for 3 hours, and it's hard. And so there's definitely some learning and a big learning curve from the first time until now. And I feel a lot more comfortable being able to talk and be able to explain some of the things that I'm seeing. There's a lot of thoughts in your head and a little very short time period to get those thoughts out, and sometimes you got to let a thought go because they're up tempo on offense and moving through the game. And so, yeah, I mean, I think I've come a long ways. It's definitely something I've worked hard at this year, and we'll see where it goes. But I felt like I'm getting better and better and more comfortable up there. Last week was fun. Called a different rivalry game, USC UCLA, and this week I get to call the Nebraska Iowa game. Calling the Nebraska game's tough because those fans hate you already. You got no chance. But it has been cool. It's really allowed me to kind of, just stay in the game. And obviously I love football, and that's been a great opportunity that NBC has given me. And, we'll see how it goes, but it's getting better and better.
Hold on, Cole. I know why. I get why they hate you, but it's not your fault. The ball landed
hit a railing or something like that. Yeah,
like that.
Well, when you beat a proud program like that 4 times, there's always going to be.
All right, we're hanging up on you. No, hey, seriously though, when you threw that away because Ndamukong Suh haunted you that night, and he is an unbelievable player like you were too, did you really think that you might have one more play left? Did you throw that a little farther than you thought, and it got pretty dicey and you weren't sure?
Hey, I mean, if I had $1 for every time somebody asked me that question, I'd have retired a long time ago. Yeah, I mean, listen, we couldn't do anything that game. I mean, they had our number. We didn't have a way to block Ndamukong Suh, Jared Crick. Those guys played some looks with Bo Pelini that I hadn't seen, and I was a senior in college. Like they had a huge plan for us, and we didn't really have much. And I certainly felt like I had more time than what was, and it was so close at the end for when the ball hit the bleachers or whatever it hit on the sidelines. I think a lot of people had to go back to the rule book to figure out what's the actual ruling here. But listen, we were in field goal range. We were just trying to get a few more yards, and you throw it out of bounds and trot the kicker out. I was certain that there was time left on that clock. But when you look back at that game offensively, I mean, we struggled the whole game. We dropped a couple touchdowns early that I think would have changed it, and then all of a sudden you're in a fight, and they were really good defensively. I mean, we almost won through the Heisman, so that was a tough one.
Well, no doubt you kicked a field goal, Hunter Lawrence did, to win that game, just like when your brother played A&M the last time. Justin Tucker kicked a field goal to win the game. And so, hey, man, I know you're busy. You've got a broadcast on Friday, so a condensed week. Have fun in Iowa City with that game. And, Colt, you'll be able to sit back, relax, and enjoy, as you mentioned, Saturday evening, A&M and the Longhorns. Thank you so much for your time. Love what you represent in your career.
Hey, thank you guys very much. I appreciate you letting me jump on here and talk this rivalry game. It's going to be a fun one to watch. I'll certainly be tuned in.
Thank you. Colt McCoy, the legend, and also has Iowa-Nebraska Friday evening. And what a run. His first couple of games, I think against A&M, he was beaten and then put a whipping on him his junior year, and then won with that 2009 team that was so good, 49-39, 49-9 he won his junior year. How about that? 479 yards of total offense and 5 touchdowns in his last game against Texas A&M, and he was pissed off because he didn't get the ball back again one more time after Marquise Goodwin, I guess it was, maybe. Is that right? Ran back the kick for a touchdown. All right, we're not done. For those of you who have joined us, we're all wearing our favorite college football team something. Paul's got a golf shirt on. I actually a Tommy Bahama shirt, looks like. Craig's got his hoodie. What did you call it? Top with a hoodie?
Call it a hooded sweatshirt. Why are you being weird about what it's called?
I'm wearing a jersey. The last time Nebraska won a national title in '97 with Scott Frost. Garrett, take a picture of you if you don't mind. Turn that around. Wearing his LSU. Let's see. You got it? There's Garrett right there.
Dark back here.
Go Tigers. Geaux. And then Emory Winter. I'm not sure we can get a picture of Emory is wearing his Baylor jersey. Get on over there, Emory, and
go
show
sit in
everybody.
Garrett's lap so the camera can get a shot.
There you go.
You.
Go do what you guys normally do during the break. There's Emory wearing. Is that the safety Hall?
No, it's Lake Seastrunk.
Oh, Lake Seastrunk, the great Lake Seastrunk, the former running back out of Temple, Texas. All right, when we come back, we're going to look at what we think our ratings should be when it comes to the college football standings. Craig's off the radar. KU football coach, Red Hot Jayhawks with Lance Leipold, John McClain, and more. Paul's Top 5, and this is 365 Sports. So yesterday, I guess late morning, I dropped by AT&T in Waco because I have my cell phone there, but I also have a couple of hotspots that we used a lot during high school broadcasts that we have for a long, long time that hook us up, sends it up into wherever it goes, and then we put it out on the air. I went by there, and I bumped into my buddy Joshua, the owner of Don Humidor and Coffee Beans in the Town West Shopping Center between Richland Drive and Valley Mills in Waco. He was in there to work on some cell phone business, And so we talked quite a bit. There was a pretty good line, so we had a few minutes to discuss what's going on. His business is doing great. As you look forward to perhaps buying something unique for a Christmas gift, or if you're an A&M and Texas fan and your team wins on Saturday night and you want to light up a cigar, they have them. 48-foot walk-in humidor with all of the great brands from Padron to Cohiba to my favorite, Rocky Patel, Macanudo, and so much more. Romeo and Julieta, Arturo Fuente, and then there's that wall to the right when you walk into their walk-in humidor, which is all Texas brand and veteran cigars that are owned by veterans and or those who reside in the state of Texas. Those are available too. Shehan and Joshua, run it. Vita Dreams, by the way, if you struggle at night to fall asleep, at Vita Dreams, it's a gummy, can help you do that as well. Fresh coffee beans, Cowboy's one of the favorite flavors and taste. They have those available too. Don Chimidor and Coffee Beans in the Townwest Shopping Center off Valley Mills and Richland Drive in Waco.
At Ideal MRI, we feel blessed to be part of the Waco community. We're a small family business here in Central Texas. At times like this, the cost of healthcare has never been more important. And unfortunately, significant illnesses and injuries still occur. And that's why Ideal MRI is open and here to serve you through this difficult time. So if you need an MRI, ask your doctor about Ideal MRI. You can schedule online in minutes at idealmri.com or call 833-IDEAL-MRI.
Pioneer Steel and Pipe opened their doors in 1943, and they have never wavered with their focus on great product and customer service, relationships with a handshake, making sure you, the customer, is satisfied. Their new facility is now twice the size, allowing new inventory, higher quantities, and in a much more organized fashion. In addition to the long lengths in tubing, angles, channels, rods, and flat, Pioneer Steel and Pipe now offers several shorter, more convenient lengths of material already cut. Their 2,500 square foot showroom has over 1,000 new products in stock, new welding supplies, hardware, quickcrete, and do-it-yourself components for any project, whether you are a professional contractor or weekend warrior. The new facility is designed to make your loading experience faster and more efficient with easy drive lanes around the building and much more room to get your trailer loaded. Our location may have changed, but our values haven't, and our relationship with customers goes much farther than just business. Pioneer Steel and Pipe on Loop 340 and Highway 6 and just east of I-35 in Waco.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com.
The 4 o'clock hour is sponsored by Boozer's Jewelers, the wedding ring store, specializing in custom jewelry and repair, all in-house.
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
All right, so tonight the college football standings will be released. And then, of course, there are still 2 more. After the final weekend, this weekend of the regular season, and then after championship weekend, conference championship weekend, that first full weekend in the month of December.
They're going to be released, and everybody's going to say, you know what, great job, committee, and handshakes,
let's move on.
And let's go enjoy some turkey.
No one will be upset. Actually, more teams now involved, but also more teams, it could be a part of it. No one's going to get what they want most likely unless, of course, it's a team that gets in. So what we decided to do is Garrett, Paul, Craig, and me put up our, as we think. Now, I want you to pay attention because most of you don't in the chat or anywhere else. This is who I would vote as my college football's top 12 per today. Not what my forecast is for after the conference championship weekend. This is who I say what I would put in to the college football standings. Oregon, Texas, SMU, Arizona State. That does not mean they're 1 through 4 of what I think, but those are the 4 automatic bids based on highest ranked conference champions. And I know Boise State and number 4, the Big 12, could be one hell of an argument. Ohio State, Georgia, which means, again, based on now, if I did this post-conference championship game, maybe that's different. Notre Dame, Penn State, Tennessee, Miami, Indiana drops from 3 or whatever it was. Again, They were not supposed to be 3. The top 4 are conference champions as of right now, in my opinion, and then Boise State, the Broncos, and Ashton Genty in the number 12 spot.
Yeah. Do you want to go through all of ours first and then recap?
I want to make sure again, because this is not my projection of what it will be. This is my projection of what I would vote if it was released by me tonight in the college football standings. So that's mine.
All right.
And we can pick and choose at those. Let's go to yours.
So, no. Well, I put it in order of you.
Okay, here's Craig's.
Craig is next.
All right. You want to give it an explanation?
I mean, I think it's pretty self-explanatory. Here's what I think as far as the seedings, as far as if I was doing it right now. I don't feel like, obviously I think Arizona State, I'd go with them right now based on what we know. But, this is for this week, as you said. So my end of season would look way different than this. I wouldn't have Texas at 2 because I don't think it'll be Texas. I wouldn't have Arizona State at 4 because I don't necessarily think it'll be them. But based on what we know right now, this is how I would have it lined up. With the top 4. I know a lot of people have SMU in that 3 spot. I still feel like Miami's a better team, but if you want to argue records and all of that, and get into the minutia of it, that's fine. But I just give the tip of the cap to Cam Ward, ultimately in the Miami versus SMU discussion. I think 5's explanatory. Notre Dame, I think that's pretty self-explanatory. I guess where it starts to get weird maybe for some is 7 on, because you could have a different – like Penn State, I know is higher for some people, but I just look at their schedule and it's another one of those teams where it's they lost close to the best team they played, and that's just that doesn't sell me on anything.
No.
Losses don't sell me, only if you have a bunch of good wins on top of those losses. But that's not what sells me is hey, they lost really close to Ohio State. I just need a little bit more than that. So I could see, though, where some would have them at 6 or 7. But for me, in comparison to Georgia and to Notre Dame and Georgia, I think those teams are slightly better. I'd give SMU the slight nod over Tennessee right now because they only have 1 loss, and I do think they have some respectable wins on their schedule. But I know that could be debated as well. And then the final 2 for me were the easiest. The top 4 was the easiest for me because that's just how I see it as of this stage. And then 11 and 12, I think Indiana's a great story. I think they deserve to be in the playoff after what happened last weekend. But I still need to see more. They blew a bunch of teams out. That's great. But in comparison to a lot of these other teams, I do feel their resume is lacking. That's another one of those, they played Ohio State close, and that's another one of those types of things. So,
like Penn State.
Yeah, and then for me, there's not even a question between the Big 12 winner and Boise State. I've been waving the Ashton Genty flag long before people knew how to pronounce his last name correctly. And I got emails to prove it, all right? Mm-hmm. So I've been a fan of this young man for a really long time. I hope he wins the Heisman Trophy in a lot of ways. I think that'd be awesome. But you look at their schedule, and it's just not comparable. It's just, again, another team where your best win is a loss. And in their case, that's particularly true. Their best win, their only ranked game, is the loss to Oregon. They have not played anybody else in the top 25. So, to me, yeah, Arizona State's got an extra blemish, but I do think that while it's not comparing the SEC to, the Southland, I do think that running the Big 12 schedule that Arizona State has and will by the end of this thing versus what Boise State has seen, that's why I give the Sun Devils the nod for that 4 spot.
By the way, before we get to yours, Paul, every single team in Craig's top 12 and every single team in my top 12, the way we have them aligned are different, but they're all the same 12 teams.
And they're all the same in mine, too.
Right. Well, and because I think after last week, there's some clarity now.
Yeah, there is.
I also think that in mine, what was the matchup? I think it's the 7-10. If we wanted to, really go out, I think the committee would probably change that up. They say that they don't, but I think they would change up Georgia-Tennessee.
Because they would play each other in a rematch?
And I just don't think they want to play in the first round.
They're going to try to separate some of those
So
teams, yeah.
I think that the committee would do something about that. I also think the next 2 weeks will determine that. So that's going to get fixed. So I'm not worried about I've got to put Tennessee in a different spot because there might be a rematch. Well, that doesn't matter right now. It's the 10 best or the 12 best teams, period, regardless of the lineup. So I just wanted to point that out because there's that finessing of the rankings. I'm not doing that at this moment.
Yeah. All right. And next Friday we can do this again.
No, we won't.
Why not?
Because I said so.
Okay.
All right, no, we'll do it again. No, we'll do it again. No.
Yeah, so we'll do it again.
Yeah.
But
and maybe next Tuesday because that's the day that released the standings.
I was just saying Friday before the the games on Saturday, because on Sunday they would have already released the standing a week from Sunday. So, like, Monday when we get here to do the show, we'll know who's going everywhere.
Yeah.
So we should do it on Friday.
To project
or Thursday,
what it's going to be?
Project
Okay,
what it's
all
gonna
right,
be.
okay.
Yeah.
So we might do it twice next week.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, so here's mine. And I have Oregon number 1. I have Texas number 2. SMU number 3. I think they're going to beat Miami. I think that they're actually a more complete team than the Hurricanes are. And I've got Arizona State at 4. And it came down to that same thing with me. Now, I got a little more like vicious with the seeding. I guess like I wanted to give Boise State credit for taking on look, having a close loss to the number 1 team in the country, if that's a metric, then I put them right behind Ohio State. I put Notre Dame, at 5. I have Georgia at 6. Although I could easily, like in my mind, flip 6 and 7. Indiana I put higher again for that same standard. And then Tennessee, Miami, and Penn State. I have Penn State at 12 because I don't think Penn State's really that good. They don't and they've earned their way in because they're going to have the record to be in. They're going to be 11-1. They should be in the playoff. But I don't think that they need to be rewarded with a home game for anything that they've done. And, that's why I'd rather see, them be the 12th seed and have to go see the 5, whoever that is. And in my mind, it's Notre Dame, which Penn State at Notre Dame in the first round of the playoffs, pretty damn exciting. Notre Dame at Penn State in the first round of the playoffs, pretty exciting either way. But I just did not want to reward them with a home game for any reason.
All right. Same 12 teams. Isn't that great? Because there could be 2 or others that could slide into that. Garrett Ross and your LSU Tigers, not a part of this. If they are, then we will put you on suspension and reprimand you like Arizona State's fans. Go.
Yeah, so for me, looking at this, I went Oregon number 1. Obviously, they're only undefeated team in the nation. I went Ohio State number 2. I think their body of work checks out. You got the win over Indiana last week, who a lot of people were high on. You had the close loss against Oregon. Texas is number 3 to me. I like their offense. I like what they could do. I know you blew a tire there against Georgia. I kind of feel like that was a one-off game. And I like right now where Texas is at over Georgia as a program. SMU, I got it number 4. I think what they've been able to do this year is really remarkable. Number 5, Notre Dame for me is kind of tricky. I think Notre Dame is kind of fool's gold year in and year out. But right now, and I still kind of can't get over that loss to Northern Illinois. So I have them right there. I like Georgia where they're at. I think Georgia's going to be in the mix here. Looking at number 7, I think regardless of how this shapes out in the ACC, me personally, I think that SMU and Miami's body of work this year, both of them should be in the playoff. I just think that they have a good argument to make there. Number 8, Boise. I'm kind of like with Craig. I think their body of work is it's not there, right? Like you have the one good win over Wazoo, but at the end of the day, you don't really have much else to show for it. I like Arizona State right now at number 9. I wanted to put, just not realistically, I think the hottest team in the Big 12 obviously is Kansas. They just don't have a chance to get in. I think Arizona State will likely win the Big 12 right now. Looking at Penn State and Indiana, it's kind of like a coin flip. Both of them, their resume are very similar there. With Indiana having that loss last week, I elected to put Penn State ahead of them. And then the SEC, like however we want to put it, the SEC is going to get at least 3 teams into this. And I think right now, the way it's shaped up, Tennessee is going to be that last SEC team that finds its way into it.
Okay, leave yours up because there's one thing that if we can correct it on the air, because Oregon and Ohio State at 1 and 2 are in the same conference. So we're going to put the conference winners 1, 2, 3, and 4. Who would you insert? That means Texas would be bumped up or however, who would you insert? Would it be Arizona State or Boise?
In that scenario, going off these standings, I would have to put Boise,
okay.
But likely I would rather have Arizona State.
Same 12 teams?
Correct.
Same 12 teams
12.
across the board. So we all have the same teams. As Craig said, there was a little bit of clarity from the weekend and also a little bit of chaos from the weekend too. So there we are with that. If you want to send us yours based on the chat room, or it'd be hard to put all of those in the chat. Also in the text line, number 254-339-1122. I was trying to get pictures of those of you who sent me.
I got 2 of them.
Okay, here's Scotty B. You have Scotty B. and his Baylor. There's Scotty B. He's even got the.
Is he wearing shoulder pads?
Yeah, no, I think so. I think Scotty B's he's a pretty tough dude. Kim,
he's
be
got
careful.
the eye black
Kim,
on,
don't
too,
go
so.
after Kim. You don't want that. And then also the eye black. And then here's McMurray. He's a Baylor fan, but also gave us his McMurray shirt. That is from. Let me see. I had the name here a minute ago. Lee, where are we here?
Lee Buttercup?
No.
No. Oh, he's a Tech guy, right?
Yeah, no, he's but there's a McMurray fan. I just had that because I sent his number to somebody else from earlier today. Let me see here. It is Jim. Yeah, Jim Swan. Appreciate Jim with his long sleeve shirt with McMurray. So there we are with the college football playoffs. I didn't take long. The only thing to me that I had to think about based on, as we know the evidence today, is who was I going to put it for? Arizona State, the Big 12, at least, who I think will win the championship compared to Boise State, who looks like they will finish as the highest-ranked G5 conference champion. A lot of fun. I enjoyed that.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of talk. Obviously, a lot of people politicking right now on who they think should be where and all that, from the conference commissioners to just talking heads like us. But I don't know. I had a pretty simple time with this. It was more or less seeding. Then I started getting to, well, I can't have a rematch. And I was like, it doesn't matter right now. It doesn't matter. It's just the rankings for tonight. So that's why Georgia-Tennessee would technically meet in the first round in mind. But obviously that's going to get shaken up because there's more games to play. So I think it's exciting. I think it's much more fun than sitting here talking about who Team 5 is, who's going to be the team screwed out of this thing, and putting together this 4-team bracket yawn of SEC champ, Big Ten champ. God, how would they do a 4-team this year? They're lucky it's a 12-team.
Yeah.
They're really lucky it's a 12-team because I don't know how they would do a 4. Boise State would probably be totally screwed, or maybe not. Maybe that would – God, how would they even begin to do that?
The 4 this year?
Yeah.
Oh, I brought that up yesterday. I thought we discussed that.
I mean, Boise would have no chance, right?
No. No. I mean,
Big 12 chance probably out with 2 losses,
with
I would
4?
think for sure.
Oh, they're done.
Yeah.
Yeah. I would say Oregon, Ohio State, and maybe even Georgia or Texas. Oh, man.
And then maybe an ACC team?
I don't know.
Like, if there's going to be a year for it to be like the Big 12 or the Big 10 bracket and the SEC bracket, it'd probably be this year. Ohio State, Oregon,
Ohio
Georgia,
State,
Texas.
and Georgia. Yeah, that's a possibility. Yeah, if in fact Texas keeps winning and Georgia does take care of Tech.
The problem with that would be it would also be a rematch of your conference championship games.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah, go 4-team. No, not really. Like, this is the best year to start off the 12-team playoff.
Conference expansion forced this. If anything, like, it would have forced it. Had they not decided to do it, right? Had they said, no, we're going to keep it at 4, and we're sitting here and there at 4, and we've got all these gigantic conferences, it would have forced it because then inside your own conference, you're going to go like, so look at the SEC. Georgia's like, well, we beat Texas and this, and then Alabama's like, yeah, but we beat you, and then Ole Miss is like, so do we, and then
Tennessee
you get
says we did this.
The Tennessee beat Alabama. Like it gets into all this. You don't have any crossover of common opponents as much.
That's why NCAA. Oh, it won't be NCAA. That's why college football czar Greg Sankey wants a super league, right? Because it would allow teams to have 4 or 5 losses and still make the playoffs and play each other off like they do in the NFL. By the way, that picture, that McMurray picture was Daniel Acton. I'm sorry, Daniel. Go ahead, Greg.
Jim, Daniel, the same thing. You know, Daniel, good to have you and appreciate you, and good-looking shirt there. But, yeah, Greg Sankey would not be the college football czar. He doesn't care about the rest of college football.
For a super league, he would be.
Yeah, but that wouldn't be a college football czar.
Yeah,
that would be a super league commissioner. But yeah, I don't see him as the college football czar. I definitely don't think he's worried about how the teams in the Southland are faring right now, much less the teams in the
college football super league czar.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I don't think he's wanting to dabble with the Big 12 if he doesn't have to. I think that's been pretty clear.
Ew. Like,
I think he's going to take the teams that he wants and then go do what he does. But yeah, he would not be over the Boise States of the world. That's for sure.
I saw theathletic.com. Then Craig's off the radar. Lance Leipold early. Little bit into the 5 o'clock hour. The college football top 12, according to The Athletic, Oregon, and this is not conference champions being separated among the top 4 like we did it because we did it right. Oregon, Ohio State, Texas, Penn State, Notre Dame, Miami, Georgia, Indiana, Tennessee, SMU, Clemson, and Alabama at 12. You know, people need to realize that college football can go on if the Crimson Tide aren't a part of the playoff, no matter if it's 4 teams or 12. It's okay. You can still breathe and watch and enjoy the game.
That's what 20 years of brainwashing has done for the folks who aren't really already born in that area and brainwashed by birth, which there's nothing wrong with that. But I think that just like there's this conditioning that has taken place. I mean, go talk to any current college student. They got a totally different perception of what college football is versus what we have from different eras. They're just in a different zone where it's been all SEC their entire lives. So, yeah, it's a different ball game for the younger crowd for sure.
All right, Craig Smoak's Off the Radar is coming up next. Also, Lance Leipold around the corner. John McClain, Hall of Fame columnist, will join us too. And Paul's Top 5. This is 365 Sports. Just went online, Marco's Pizza, marcos.com. A new triple pepperoni magnifico, a limited time for $11.99 for a large pizza. You can use the code word triple pep. They've gone from the pepperoni magnifico to the double pepperoni magnifico to even what they have with Italian sausage and pepperoni, and my God, it's now the triple pepperoni magnifico. Also, Friendsgiving. $23.99. You can use the code word thankful. And here's what you get. 2 medium, 1 topping pizzas, cheesy bread, and also 2 liters of your favorite soft drink. So feeds 5 friends for under, well, about $5 a piece at $23.99 only if you go online at marcos.com. Specialty pizzas, limited time. The large have $3 off. Use the code word special3. Marco's Pizza, the fastest growing pizza brand in America. 5 in our location near Waco with Bellmead, China Spring, Hewitt, Robinson, and Woodway. Marco's Pizza. Pizza lovers get it.
Established in 2007 and independently owned, Alliance Bank Central Texas is committed to helping families and businesses meet their financial goals. From their tellers to their board of directors, they know the importance of superior service and competitive products. Customers have confidence knowing that their financial needs are in good hands. It's your bank, Alliance Bank Central Texas, with 2 Waco locations, 4721 Bosque Boulevard and 191 Archway Drive on Highway 84, and at alliancebanktexas.com. Member FDIC and equal housing lender.
Hi, I'm Mark Stewart with Bird Colgan Ford. It's that time of year, it's football season. Bird Colgan Ford is a proud supporter of the best high school football right here in Central Texas. BK Ford is proud to sell the #1 selling truck in Texas, the F-Series truck, 47 years in a row. Come see the largest showroom in Texas and experience better at Bird Colgan Ford.
Riverbend Liquor and Wine now has 2 locations to serve you. The original on Lakeshore Drive and North 19th Street, and the brand new spot in downtown Waco at 600 Franklin Avenue. If you're looking for the best in craft beers or local Texas bourbons, then the original is the place to be. And for the latest trends and online phenomenons, head downtown to the Franklin location. Either way, you're going to get the same great variety, customer service, and speedy experience. Check out both locations on their Facebook and Instagram pages. Riverbend Liquor and Wine, Lakeshore Drive and North 19th Street, and now downtown on Franklin Avenue.
This is Craig Smoak's Off the Radar, presented by Alliance Bank. They take pride in making banking easy. AllianceBankTexas.com.
All right, welcome. It's Off the Radar here on 365 Sports, Tuesdays and Thursdays around 4:45. Take a look at a grab bag of stories, headlines, whatever may be out there of interest we're talking about that's outside of our normal purview. And going to start off with a little bit of hoops talk because of something that just occurred in college basketball on what is a very busy day. Man, I cannot imagine being some gambler who loves college basketball and you're just sitting back all day long today with just games on games on games on games. And there's some big ones tonight, but a big one just came down. You know, we have poked fun along with everybody else on the way the Big 12 football votes came out in the preseason poll. But, I mean, like, who could have foreseen Arizona State being as good as they are? Like, nobody was predicting that. I don't even think Kenny Dillingham was predicting that they could end up in Arlington. Some of them are a bit more surprising, but Kansas has surged now. They don't look nearly as bad as they did. But, like, Oklahoma State, that was a failure. Like, a complete and utter failure. Utah, complete and utter failure. No doubt about that. But is it time to start having a conversation about the basketball poll? Because the 15th place in the preseason poll, Colorado Buffaloes, have just taken down number 2 UConn. 73-72 out of the Maui Invitational. The Buffaloes over the Huskies. Colorado now 5-1, and the big win after they had just lost to Memphis to get their first loss of the year in a really close contest. So they turn around and they beat UConn. UConn had just lost to Memphis, not Colorado. My apologies there. But, yeah, UConn had just suffered that loss. You heard Dan Hurley, like some of his post-game went viral and all of that. So imagine what this one's going to be like.
Oh, there's video.
Two games in a row that you've lost now. So, yeah, congratulations to Colorado, who was voted to finish 15th in the preseason poll.
Right.
73-72, Buffs over the Huskies.
They're like the football team. No one expected Dion and company to be in the mix. They can't, they have had a great run. No one expected that, and I think it's going to happen with these expansion of conferences that there's going to be teams, even though you have your dogs like UConn will be fine, but you're going to have some teams that kind of come out of the pack because of the transfer portal and also NIL.
But will they? No, I think they'll be fine. They'll be fine. Dan Hurley, though, needs to maybe take a bit of a chill pill.
No. Okay.
I mean, yes.
I think I'm intense and sometimes just completely a raving lunatic. I think I'm not as bad as him.
No, then you need to take a chill pill too. So,
that's what I just said.
Yeah, no, I mean,
what do you mean?
You said no. I mean, I think he needs to take a little bit of a chill pill because when you say, do you think your technical cost the team the game? No, I think the shitty calls did. Like that to me is, and that's a direct quote. Man, it shouldn't come down to that.
By the way, Colorado scored with 8 seconds left in the game to take the lead. But I agree, he's nuts. But isn't that what is part of his strength, Craig? Dan?
I mean, if you're winning, if not, you'd be fired in 2 seconds with how he acts. So, it's lucky that he wins.
Is he worse than Bo Pelini?
Bo Pelini was just yelling on the sideline.
What a fresh reference.
Yeah. No, Bo Pelini, I don't think I ever got Bo Pelini being sarcastic or he was blaming other he was when you blame the officials, you take out your own account for it, right? So you're not being accountable when you blame the refs. And that's something that he hasn't had to be because they've done nothing but beat everybody for the last 2 years. And then all of a sudden, hey, how do you let Memphis score that many points on you? How do you let Memphis almost give the game away and don't take it? And you say, well, the refs did that. That part of that's you.
That looks really stupid. I think he's fantastic. Obviously a great coach, but that lowers him into the mud.
All right, so congratulations to Colorado on the big win over number 2 UConn. 2 losses in a row for the Huskies. So, again, we'll see what that Hurley postgame looks like, and a nice bounce back for Colorado, who out there at the Maui Invitational had just lost to Michigan State. So both teams coming off losses, but it's Colorado who answers the bell there. Meanwhile, there are a lot of really great games in action. I mean, a huge slate of just college basketball in general, but a couple games involving Big 12 teams in particular today that are worth mentioning, and one of those is coming up tonight at 7 o'clock on TBS as part of the Players Era Festival and Impact Tournament. It'll be the number 6 Houston Cougars against the number 9 Alabama Crimson Tide. So a nice little top 10 matchup there, Houston and Alabama on TBS. That's from MGM Grand Garden Arena out there in Las Vegas, Nevada. Also out in Las Vegas, they'll be tipping off an hour apart, and this one will be taking place at T-Mobile Arena on ESPN at 8. Will be number 1 KU, the Jayhawks, against the number 11 Duke Blue Devils. So Kansas, Duke also on tap for tonight, starting an hour after Houston and Alabama, and right there in the same vicinity of Las Vegas, Nevada. So Good night if you're a Hoops fan out in the desert. Good night if you're a Hoops fan. Good day if you're a Hoops fan just with all these games. But that's a couple of monster matchups that'll be taking place later on tonight. And outside of the Big 12, you also have number 4 Auburn, number 12 North Carolina out in Hawaii. That's a 10 o'clock tip-off Central Time. But that a part of the Maui Invitational. So you got late-night hoops, and there's actually a couple games starting at 10:59 p.m. Central Time, like Fresno State, Washington State on True TV. So, yeah, there's basketball all day, all night long. But those are some pretty sexy matchups going on the rest of this day.
I guess you're locked in, huh?
Well, here's the
Let's
deal.
go to dinner. You and me, let's go have drinks at some sports bar.
I would love to. I have to pack up for our little Thanksgiving trip.
That's not till tomorrow. You can do that tomorrow morning.
Yeah, I have to get up. She wants to leave very early. Here's how tonight's going to go. Because Kansas is playing Duke, and Amanda won't be able to turn it on in stretches, I have a feeling that all 3 hours of the Dancing with the Stars finale that will take her completely away from it will be on in my house, which, Smokey, normally I would protest, but given the fact that if Duke wins the game, it'd be much worse for me, I need some stupid celebrities dancing to distract her.
That show is 3 hours for the final? Is that what we've come to now? Okay.
Yeah. Believe me, I've lit a candle in church and asked God about this very thing. Can you just shorten it up a little bit?
By the way, the sponsor of that game is Terry's Chocolate, milk chocolate, and it's not a square. It's like a little ball. They talk about how we're not square. So I've never heard of Terry's milk chocolate milk. Okay, good.
Okay.
Look, there's a duck.
Great. Man, oh, man.
Never heard of him. Terry's Milk Chocolate, not a sponsor here.
I'm a little bit out of whack because I feel bad for you tonight.
Yeah, you should. Okay. Unless Kansas wins, then everything will be fine. But
yeah. So, anyways, a lot of good basketball on tonight is the point, and some big games involving the Big 12. Meanwhile, there's a lot of awards finalists being announced, and a lot of different names being thrown out there as far as the various honors that are going to be getting announced here in the coming weeks. But there was one in particular that was of interest that I thought worth mentioning because the head coach has already commented on it, and that involves the Jim Thorpe Award, which goes, of course, to the nation's top defensive back. And the finalists that were announced are Jahdae Barron of Texas, Caleb Downs of Ohio State, and Malachi Starks of Georgia. Do you notice a name missing from there that a Big 12 coach might be a little bit upset about?
Travis Hunter.
Yes, Dion, not happy apparently with Travis Hunter not being named a finalist. He said, "How is Travis Hunter snubbed by the Thorpe Award? You can have my award. He won it in 1988. You can have it back. Matter of fact, I'm going to give him mine. I ain't using it. It's just sitting up there collecting dust. So Travis can have my Thorpe Award because if this ain't the most idiotic thing in college football that he's not a finalist for the Jim Thorpe Award, and he is, I would say, arguably, but I don't think it's really an argument about this young man being the best defensive back in college football. So there was Dion on the snub in his eyes and probably many people's eyes of Travis Hunter for the Jim Thorpe Award.
You know, I'm fortunate to be a part of a lot of them, including whatever the timeline will be on the Heisman Trophy following in the next week or two. His issue is not what kind of great football player is. Is he a great defensive back or is he a great wide receiver? He's a great football player, and I wonder if sometimes people get a little bit locked up in what they call him.
Well, I don't think he's asking him to be on the Biletnikoff list.
No,
and I think he would know really well about defensive backs, you know. So I think that if he's touting him, I know he's his guy, but I think that he's probably got a case. And I do think it does get lost. This is what I mentioned a couple weeks ago with Travis Hunter. Of like, it's hard to differentiate like how good he really is because it's harder to like justify defensively because there's not like here's touchdowns and here's yards and here's catches and it's not so black and white. But if Dion, you know, and I know he's biased obviously, but if he's saying that, then I mean, who knows better than him about defensive back play, you know? But at the same time, those other three guys are pretty damn good and certainly deserving in their own right. But yeah, I think, I mean, when you project Travis Hunter out, he's an athlete, but you're projecting him as a corner, not a wide receiver, right? So, like, that's his bread and butter. That's his main lane if you will. So, yeah, maybe Deion's onto something. But either way, he voiced it, and I appreciate him doing that. And you know what? Good for him.
I think he should have been on the Thorpe Award list. I think he's the best cornerback in the country. I think by far. And because he plays wide receiver, why don't we and look, I have a vote for the Thorpe Award. Smokey, I know that you have a vote for the Thorpe Award. When I put in my finals for the Thorpe Award, Travis Hunter was number one. When I put in my votes for the Biletnikoff Award, he was actually not on it. He was not on my top three.
Okay.
He was not on my top three.
And he's not in the finalist of that either.
He is.
I thought it was the kid from.
No, it's San Jose State, Travis Hunter. I have made a graphic today. It's Travis Hunter, Nash from San Jose State, and Tedero McMillan. Are the finalists.
Okay.
So the Biletnikoff Award, and look, I was probably maybe wrong about that. I would love to see a guy win, essentially dueling the opposite award. The Thorpe Award and the Biletnikoff are for the opposite thing. To do that, I think he should have been on the Thorpe Award list.
Yeah, I mean, he put up huge numbers as a receiver. I just think at the next level, he's going to be that corner that you're eyeing, but he can still do a lot of different things. I just feel like at wide receiver, you can say, hey, here's your 1,000+ yards, here's your double-digit TDs, and people can correspond with that. But if you just tell them, like, no, he's really good, like, what are they even looking at as voters? I don't know, because I don't vote for the award, but Deion not happy with that snub of Travis Hunter, but hey, he could still go win the Biletnikoff. Problem is, I don't think he's beating out Tedero McMillan for it, but nevertheless.
Yeah, and the other young man from San Jose State's put up massive numbers, but he might win the Heisman and the Maxwell Award for the best player in college football without winning one of the individual awards.
He might win every award except for the position where he's best.
Yeah.
Where he didn't even get to be a finalist, which makes very little sense, but you can see why Deion and a lot of other people are up in arms about that. Meanwhile, one other thing on Colorado, because it was a little bit of a newsy day today, Deion Sanders saying that this weekend will not be the last time you see Shedeur Sanders and Travis Hunter in a Colorado uniform. He says, no, it's not the last time you're going to see them in a buff uniform against Oklahoma State. We're going to go to a bowl game and end this thing on the right note. So seems like regardless of where they end up going, you're going to see Shedeur and Travis Hunter playing in a bowl game, and Deion letting that be known. So that's cool, and a great deal for Buffs fans there.
All right. He is these awards, these have been hard. There's a couple of guys that I think should have been a part of the finalists. I voted to get him into the finalists, but there's also many others, like Paul does too. And there's a couple of awards where I thought maybe there was somebody missing, but not everybody can win a ribbon.
Yeah, no, I nailed my top three of the Groza Award. I nailed it.
Nice.
I was pretty fired up.
Well, you have your punter at Florida State. That's all he did. A lot.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, like, that was one. But I nailed it. I got it. So Outland Trophy, 1 out of 3.
What?
1 out of 3. The two of the other guys I voted for didn't get it. So
who did you vote for other than Banks, Graham, and Nolan?
Well, I didn't vote for Banks. I did vote for Will Campbell
from LSU.
From LSU, and then instead of Walter Nolan, I voted for it's blanking. Another really good defensive tackle. Yeah.
Oh yeah. So you and Garrett with Will Campbell. I voted for the 3 guys who were the finalists because Kelvin Banks and Graham and Nolan are all amazing.
Yeah.
I was lucky. I got them all 3 right.
Yeah.
Craig, back to you.
All right, tonight in college football, a couple of games. Toledo is at Akron. Toledo 7-4, Akron 3-8. That kicks off at 6 o'clock on ESPN2, and then also Kent State is at Buffalo. The Golden Flashes, one last chance to win a game or go winless. 0-11. Buffalo 7-4. That's 6 o'clock on ESPN Plus. Sounds like a real thriller there, but a couple college football games to go along with what is a massive day in college basketball. And I guess the only other final note that I just wanted to pass along would be on former Baylor star Jalen Petrie, who unfortunately is injured and is expected to miss at least a few weeks with a pectoral injury that occurred the other night against Tennessee in that loss. So, had a tackle on Tyler Boyd and just kind of landed weird, stretched his pec weird, and injured it, so he's going to get a second opinion to see how long he's going to be out, but it's looking like a few weeks kind of an issue there, so that's a real shame to see that, and hope he gets back sooner rather than later because he's a really fun player. And the Texans, man, when it rains, it pours. For them, it started off so good, and now it's just suddenly these last, 2 or 3 weeks, it's just started to really go downhill for that franchise and their expectations this year. So hopefully Jalen can get healthy quickly. And outside of that, there's a few things off the radar.
Whenever I think about torn pectoral, I think of Jay Ratliff. Was it Ratliff or was it somebody else that tore his pectoral?
Ratliff
and they're
did.
done.
Yeah.
I think Philadelphia lost Graham.
Yeah,
Didn't
Brandon
he?
Graham.
I think he did the same thing. And that's you don't see it a lot, but you see it maybe 3 to 5 times a year. He's done.
I think that the Texans, as much potential as they have, I would say just get fast forward to the end of the year. Like, you're not going to win anything in the playoffs, especially the way your offensive line's playing. You've got some potential. I'd want to fast forward to make sure that we don't break C.J. Stroud.
Yeah.
Did I say pec? I meant shoulder. Shoulder injury is what it is.
Oh, that's
I was thinking
Petrie?
pec. Huh?
Petrie? Yeah, good, because a pec injury is not good at all.
No, it wasn't a pec.
Great.
It was a shoulder injury.
Okay.
So if I said that wrong, that was my bad.
All right, one other thing. The Broyles Award for the best assistant coaches in college football, that was out today. Jake Spavital is a part of that list, along with many other programs representing from the state of Texas.
Like 30 other programs.
Yeah, there's 29. There's 29 coaches. Actually, 65 from over 1,500, and now they have cut it to what looks like it's like maybe 30 or so. No, there's a bunch. There's 65.
There's a lot of people on that
nominees,
list.
yep.
But he's deserving. He's had a really good year.
All right, Kim Coulter wanted us to know that who's the only team who has beaten Arizona State and Iowa State?
Texas Tech?
Yeah. Just imagine what could have been if they would have followed those up with other wins against others that you would have thought they won.
They've had a weird year
Yeah.
because of the fact that they're probably going to break through the ceiling of what Joey McGuire's done up to this point and win, 9 games potentially. But at the same time, you had your letdowns against some of your, I guess, more important rivals like a Baylor, like a TCU. And I know for some people, there's the whole, the whole play thing again, the headset thing. So I don't know if you want to take that into account, maybe it changes your perception, but in general, it's looking like a year where they're going to finish another step forward, but it's not like big picture what you're hoping to see. So it'll be interesting to see how people sort of absorb that and whether it's a big momentum thing like the last couple of years have been, or if it's like no, we need 10 wins, that kind of a thing. I don't know. But, they're set to improve, albeit slightly.
Yeah, no, and there was that time when, what were they, 5-1, and then all of a sudden lost a couple of games in a row to TCU, and before that, Baylor. When we come back, Lance Leipold, Kansas. Man, we got a chance to visit with him. I think it was the first time that we had a chance to sit down with him. It was back during Big 12 Media Days in Vegas, and absolutely and thoroughly enjoyed time with him. He's got the Jayhawks red hot after what they've done the last 3 weeks, and Baylor in Waco on Saturday. KU football coach Lance Leipold next on 365 Sports. Pioneer Steel and Pipe. You think about a team being constructed and what you have to do. You got to have guys in the trenches on the offense and defensive line. You want to have skilled people. You have to have some Army ants to do a little bit of everything, even though they may not be the ones to get a lot of the catches or the stats or score touchdowns. That's how you build something with Pioneer Steel and Pipe. Greatness when it comes to steel, pipe, and metal. Every product you would need to build a house or an office building, commercial or real estate, or even something if you have a lot of land and you want to build a large fence or culvert or entryways and gates. They have all of that, and they've done that since 1943. Their location is on Highway 6 and Loop 340, a little bit east of I-35 in Waco, and 1943, and they're bigger, better, faster, and stronger, which is also what you want your team to be after an offseason when your football season does end. They do it right. They construct and have all the equipment and all the product you need. Pipe, steel, and metal. PioneerBoys.com.
Automatic Chef is your local vending, office coffee, and micro market provider, delivering outstanding service to break rooms all over Central Texas for over 50 years. Automatic Chef brings the best products to your location at the best prices. With hundreds of choices in fresh food, coffee, snacks, and drinks, let Automatic Chef tailor a break room solution to your needs. Make break time great again with Automatic Chef. Automatic Chef Canteen, 6900 Imperial Drive in Waco, or online at automaticchef.com.
Don's Humidor, your home with a 48-foot walk-in humidor with the elite cigar brands from around the world, including the #1 cigar of the year, Aging Room Cuatro Nicaragua. Plus, they have the great brands like Macanudo and Artur Fuente, Rocky Patel, Aston, and so much more. CBD, great for sore muscles, aches and pains, sleep, Vita Dreams, and anxiety, mild depression, general health and wellness. Their staff very knowledgeable on the subject. Don's Humidor in the Townwest Shopping Center off Valley Mills in Waco.
Want to send a message to the show? Jump in the Rudy's Country Store and Barbecue chat room.
Here we go, 365 Sports. Appreciate your time. And as Craig mentioned, I can't wait to see some of the press conference of Hurley, two-time defending national champion who had another loss, and several different video clips of how he's acted so far this year. You wonder, even as good as he is, as what he's done, the leverage that he has, or whatever you want to call it, what he's built up, there are some that can get tired of that as far as the officials. But he's going to push because he feels like he can.
So are we waiting Lance Leipold here?
Yeah, we're waiting on Lance.
All right, so before we go out of here, because I know if I don't say this, we probably won't get to it, who's playing in the Big 12 championship game?
I'm going to say Arizona State and Iowa State get it done. But
you think so?
Yeah.
They both win. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, Arizona State has an easier path than that. I mean, Iowa State has to play Farmageddon.
The clearest path is obviously Arizona State beating Arizona, and right now they are like 8.5-point favorites. It is in Tucson, so it's a road game. But we know the year it's been like, hey, you got a Biletnikoff finalist, like you've got a guy who's a pretty big deal there in Tedero and McMillan. But yeah, then Iowa State, 2.5-point favorites as it sits right now at home against Kansas State. That's the other game that matters.
Yeah, that's
a lot of people think K-State's going to win this game.
Utah, huh?
A lot of people think K-State's going to win this game.
Well, I was just going to say, that's what I was saying. Iowa State had to hold on against Utah. So, of course, neither one of them, they're flawed. Everybody seems to be somewhat flawed. Arizona State on one heck of a run at this particular time. Just got a note from KU. They're waiting for Lance Leipold to get out of a meeting, and once he does, he will be with us here on this show.
So I tend to agree with Paul. I think right now I lean towards Iowa State winning against Kansas State. I do not feel great about that. But I do feel really good about BYU beating Houston. So they'd be next up, and BYU versus Arizona State in a rematch of a game that obviously just this past weekend, seeing it twice in 3 weeks, not the most exciting thing in the world. But given how exciting the ending was there, I'm sure BYU feels like they can turn that tide, and Arizona State probably feels like they can win again. But I think I'm kind of leaning that way as well. But man alive, K-State, that's going to be tough for the Cyclones. And you know what, Matt Campbell, better get it done, pal. Like, here's your opportunity. Don't fumble the bag. Like, y'all are lucky to even be in this position at all, given how the weekends went. Like, there was a time where you just kind of got brushed aside for a second. But here's this golden opportunity that was just given right back to you. You're at home. It's Farmageddon. Like, don't screw this up, pal.
Well, like I said in that tweet that I saw a couple of days ago, the worst nightmare possible for an Iowa State fan is that Iowa State has control of their own destiny as far as, like, just the trust factor. They've had a nice run. But, I don't – man, so Arizona State, if you had to take one of the three, so you think Kansas State will beat Iowa State, and that would open the door up for BYU if they take care of business against Houston.
No, we both said we thought Iowa State was going to win that game.
Oh, okay. I wasn't listening. Yeah. I was trying to set up this interview for both of you guys to be lucky to have Lance Leipold on the show.
Yeah, no.
I got a problem with Garrett.
I I mean, so do I. I mean, everybody does.
But I got evidence of what's wrong with Garrett.
What's that? What you got?
In your college football playoff standings, you mentioned body of work.
Okay.
That's a cuss phrase based on what Warden Manuel will mention sometime tonight.
Well, my team's from the SEC. We get these excuses.
And the other thing is you stole a Matt Rule at the end of the day.
I have used that. I do use that.
Because that came from a lot of what Matt used to say back when Baylor was 1-11, or he talked about getting guys ready for the pros, and everyone laughed, and then he got guys ready for the pros. So I'm going to take K-State. And that would then open the door up for BYU.
So then you have BYU versus Arizona State.
Which, I know. Remember in 21 when Baylor on a fingernail beat Oklahoma State. Oklahoma had the lead or had the ball late in that game with Caleb Williams, and that would have been like an immediate turnaround to play a rematch the next week in the Big 12 championship game, but Oklahoma State won the game in Stillwater. And you're going to have that every once in a while. It's not a lot, but you're going to have that every once in a while.
I guess I don't know. I guess it's good. I don't know. There's the alternative where these teams don't play each other until the championship game or at all. So I don't know if it's any better or worse than them playing twice in 3 weeks potentially. But I'm going to say that doesn't happen because Iowa State at home, night game, all the bells and whistles. I'm going to believe in them to actually take advantage of this and go get it done. Now, they've been in a Big 12 championship game before. I mean, they were in one just a few years ago. They've never won it, though. And that would be the big trick here is first you got to get back, which is going to be hard enough against K-State, but then go and win it. But, yeah, I'm going to entrust that they get it done, although I don't feel great about it. Like, if you think that K-State wins this game, I totally understand the reasoning. Yeah, I think it's a total toss-up.
Yeah, and you know what? What's funny? I saw Matt Campbell on a lot of people's hot boards for the North Carolina job, and I'm like, no, I feel like he's the Iowa State coach. I think that's really – and the cool thing about Matt Campbell is, to me, that's what he wants to be, right?
I think at this point that's pretty clear, yeah.
Yeah, that's what he wants to be. He doesn't just see himself as football coach, with the graphic that they have – for free agents on SportsCenter, we're like all of a sudden like, oh, the Yankees signed this guy.
Yep.
We cut out and put the hat on him there. No. Like he's you can keep him as the Iowa State coach.
Well, in that area, you've got Iowa State with Campbell, K-State with Kleiman. It's been a tough couple of weeks for him, obviously, but he seems to be back focused on what's happening this week and in a little bit better spirits. And then you have Leipold at KU. And everyone wanted to take him to Washington or take him to Michigan State or take him to Nebraska, whatever. And they have stayed, those three, right there next to each other in the Midwest at where they are at this particular time. Iowa State, you guys remember the last time they won a conference title?
No, because it never happened.
Yeah.
1912.
Okay, well, like I said, never happened. Pre-World War II doesn't exist.
1911 and 1912, they won a couple of conference championships. And now that's a long drought. That's a long drought. But that's a note that I went back and looked at that because I knew it had been a while. And as you mentioned, they played Oklahoma. And it was a very competitive game. He lost it on the sidelines in that game over a penalty that he wasn't real thrilled about.
You have to specify. Matt Campbell lost on the sidelines. You have to get a little bit down in the dirt and specify which game that is just this season, much less over the span of the last few years, because I've seen that happen quite a few times.
He's got a little trigger, a little quick trigger, Craig, Paul. I've seen him get lit up a few times. I have seen him do that before. All right, let's discuss before we get to Lance Leipold. The game is on Saturday, 11 o'clock, Baylor and KU. Both are red hot. KU's won against ranked teams. Baylor's been able to get a 5-game streak that's put them on the cusp of an unthinkable 8-4 after where they were. And we have to give predictions that we send in to Sikkim365.com. Paul, have you sent yours in?
Yep.
Paul, Craig?
No, I don't ever send mine in until like Friday.
Well, that makes Levi have to work on an off day.
I'm sorry, Levi, that you copy and pasted my email to you, and it took you 2 seconds.
Whoa! Damn.
I think he'd probably be doing that anyway. Levi's very dedicated. No, I put in my prediction for Kansas. I think they're just playing so well right now. So is Baylor. But Kansas is beating giants in this league right now, the ones of the best teams. So, yeah, and it's not because I'm married to a Jayhawk, and it's not because – no, it's not – and it's not because we're about to have Lance Leipold and he might pop in any minute and hear me talking about it. I just think that – because you just asked us this – I just think that in a very close game, they just have it going a little bit more right now, although I think this game is two teams that are just on fire.
Yeah, I mean, I will have my official prediction on Friday in that article, but I'm going KU here, and not just because Lance Leipold is about to join us, as Garrett's trying to let you guys know right this very moment.
We got him.
But I would go with KU. We can get into the details later.
Well, we're joined by Kansas football coach Lance Leipold. Red-hot team, the Jayhawks, Saturday in Waco against Baylor. Thank you very much, Coach. We love the segment we had with you at Big 12 Media Days in Las Vegas. Why are you winning now, and what are you doing? Obviously, a lot of things that you're winning these games against very, very good teams.
Well, good afternoon, guys, and it's great to be with you. I appreciate the opportunity. It's been an interesting year for us, definitely, and one that was extremely frustrating and disappointing to start for the first half of the season. But I really commend our staff and really our leadership and our upperclassmen that stuck with it. We weren't finishing games. We weren't making big plays when we needed to. We tried to address it. We talked about it in different ways. I think our players owned it, didn't make excuses, didn't blame someone else, and we kind of stayed with it. And what ended up being a highly challenging back half of the schedule is one that we played our best football in. And I told the team at the halfway point, guys, we can, as you know, and our guys didn't lose confidence that we could play with people. And I said, we can win all these games down the stretch, but if we don't get any better, we won't win any of them. And that's the way this conference has turned out to be.
Did you feel there was a mental and emotional light that went on at some point that's allowed you to get this winning streak, or was it just the accountability that you just talked about?
I can't say that there was like one thing that all of a sudden, boom, we started to do something and we changed something in practice or honestly, we didn't make any changes in personnel, and we just kind of stayed with it. We worked a little bit more on some 2-minute situations or some other ways that we could try to improve some of the things that weren't closing out games or halves and things like that. And I hope that has helped us a little bit, but I just think sometimes I've said this in many interviews, is we've talked about it for many years here, that really in a course of a football game, there's probably 3 to 5 plays that are going to highly dictate which direction the outcome happens. And we weren't making those plays happen for us on our end, and now we're starting to do that. And we all also tried to tell our guys, we need to play our best when our best is needed during the course of a game. And I think we've been able to do that and get stops and get some plays and control the ball when we needed to.
How would you describe the season-long journey of your quarterback, Jalen Daniels?
Well, again, Jalen's such a fine young man and a talented player. First half of the season is not what he wanted it to be. I think, there's probably a point of all of us, and it starts with the head coach who didn't do as well as he should have for the young man of gauging maybe if the word rust or what it was from not playing where it was. He didn't take any 11-on-11 snaps in the spring per se. We had him on a modified throwing program through the beginning of fall camp, and we had a few receivers out, and I don't think we were clicking in a way. Obviously, we weren't in a way that we were capable of. I think he tried to make too much happen. He put a little extra pressure on himself, tried to create some plays at times and some throws that he probably isn't making right now, and is better in the decision making and better in ball security, and that has given us a chance. And I think really from about the Arizona State game on, he's played to me like the Jalen Daniels of old, and he's continued to play really well for us here.
What have you seen with Baylor? They're red hot too, just like you are. This is like about a month and a half ago. This might not even have been on ESPN Plus, and I'm just joking because we could do that with you because both teams were struggling. But you guys are red hot, and so are they, Coach. What do you see from what they're doing?
Yeah, I wouldn't disagree with you. I don't think ESPN Plus would even pick that one up. I don't know. It might have made the Ocho or something. Yeah, Dave Aranda's done an outstanding job, and their team's playing well, winning 5 straight. They're impressive. They're probably the team that of all the teams we've played this year that are playing the fastest as far as getting the ball snapped. So we'll have to get lined up, get calls, and be sound. They're physical in the run game. Their offensive line is extremely physical. Their playmakers on the outside have been doing a good job. Once they've made the quarterback change, they've been kind of hitting on all cylinders. And like a lot of teams in this league, when you have playmakers and guys at all the positions, and they probably have as good a receiving tight end as we've seen this year, that stretch the field and do things, they're extremely well. And we know what kind of defensive coordinator Dave Aranda's been throughout his career. They're playing extremely well on defense. Again, aggressive and physical and sound. And the other thing that sticks out with this group, they're excellent in the special teams area, and they've created some big plays. And I look at some of the guys they use in the return game. They're big physical runners. Most of the time your return men are smaller, kind of quicker guys, make you miss guys. They got powerful runners with great speed and can make quick decisions as well and plant and go. And it's going to be a big challenge for us, and we need to play well in all 3 phases once again.
Your team is on a bit of school history here. If you win the game and make a bowl game, it would be the first team in Kansas history to make 3 straight. How much of a focal point has that been, especially for the guys that have been with you from the jump, the guys who haven't transferred, the ones who have been Jayhawks from day one and are now graduating?
Well, people have asked what we've talked about these last few weeks about where it's at. And today's young men, they know how many games you need to win to get to a bowl game. They understand. They've seen it somewhere else. They don't need their head coach to stand in front of them and tell them what this game's really about. To me, we did address it's kind of like a playoff type game for us. You win, you get to play again. If you don't, you're done. And there's a lot to be said about that it's a highly meaningful game against one of the best teams in our conference currently, who's playing the best in the last month and a half. And and it's a place we haven't won before at the University of Kansas. We haven't beaten Baylor in an awful long time. So there's a lot of big challenges with this. And our guys have known that, just like we've kind of gone these last 3 weeks, actually 4 straight games of ranked opponents. It's been what the Big 12 conference has turned out to be. It's a little bit of a gauntlet, and we've got to embrace it. And I know our guys will be excited about kickoff.
Coach, on that note, I don't know if you saw Chris Kleiman's comments from like the last 24 hours at his press conference. He was talking about the Big 12 in the offseason needs to get together and kind of discuss ways to better position themselves in terms of the CFP and just kind of how the league is viewed. And maybe that's by scheduling differently or something, but you're very well aware of the logjam. You've created the logjam in a lot of ways over this last month, almost single-handedly. But do you think there's an issue in terms of scheduling or the logjam itself that the Big 12 needs to work out or look at in the offseason?
Absolutely. I do. In fact, I did see Chris's comments, and I texted with him a little bit about him today. I commended him for taking a stance, and it is, and as we're going to find out through this, additional playoff teams and other things, debates, politics, whatever point of views are going to continue to be influencing what's happening. And so I asked Andy, who's our communications guy here that helped set this up with us. I asked him to find out what the Big 12 non-conference records winning percentage this season, and then we won 73% of our non-conference games. Now Kansas didn't help that number at all this year, but if you win 73% of your non-conference games and you only play 3 of them, and you play a 9th conference game that week, while other conferences are playing non-conference games and winning 75 to 90% of those games, probably we are going 500 as a conference when we're going against each other every week. So the records are going to look different. And then, so if we have the option to go win 75% of a weekend and to help records out there, I think that needs to be talked about. And if we're going to get on common ground about all these debates about how many schools and what conferences are the best and everything, we need to get some commonality that's going to be static throughout Power 4 football.
Coach, you've won a lot in your career, and you're rebuilding and renovating the program where you are now and reaching certain thresholds. Do you ever, or in this time period, do you ever question yourself other than just like, what do you need to do differently? What's that like when you're on a streak like you were earlier?
Well, again, I probably, after it's all said and done, and I don't know when we ever take a breath anymore in this profession, but there'll be a moment where you really kind of look back at it, and it was probably in many ways it could be the most disappointing season of my head coaching career, because expectations were very high and we did not match that to begin. And as you guys know, we're doing a lot of things facility wise in our stadium, and there's investments, and when you're not playing well, that can put a dent in things and excitement and all those things, and you take that personally, and it's frustrating. And like I said, we didn't change a whole lot because we believed in what we were doing. We were just finding a way to play a little better. But yeah, it's a unique thing that you kind of look at and you get a little disappointed and look at it. But as much as it is, depending on Saturday's outcome, this could also be one of the more rewarding seasons of my head coaching career as well.
Lance Leipold, head coach at Kansas, was with us on 365 Sports.
Jalen Daniels was coming back from injury, in the spring and all of that. Did you do you feel like he had to shake off rust when the season started, and that's why he was wonky and not himself, or was it just kind of the way the season was going?
Probably a little bit of each. I would say, like I said, he was there. There were some times I think he was trying to make big plays instead of just making a good consistent play. But he has made so many of those for us in his time here. And I never wanted to pull the reins in on him. I never thought about taking him out of the game. That was never going to be a thing. Jalen Daniels is one of the biggest reasons why this program has turned around. And I believe in the young man and love him dearly for everything he's done, the person he is every day. But there was probably some things that, like I said, Jalen Daniels was not the only reason why we were not successful. I want to make sure we say that. There were a lot of things that in all three phases that we did not do well enough to win games. But I do think there was probably some time away, like I said earlier, some 11-on-11 work of what happens and sight lines and everything that you see that we we should have done a better job, and that's on me. That we didn't give him maybe as much scrimmage work and other things that we probably should have before we hit the field for regular play.
Coach, I asked this because you just got an up-close view, but you played a very talented player there in Travis Hunter, who's in the race for a lot of different awards. Just what did you see up close from him? And in terms of whether the Heisman or the Blitnikoff, he's finalist for the Blitnikoff today. Just what do you think of him as a talent, seeing him up close and personal?
He's an extremely talented guy, and to me, probably one of the more talented players I've ever seen in my coaching career, because for him to do what he's doing and being on the field as long as he is for a course of a season, playing both ways and being productive, it's not a gimmick. It's not a sometime thing. He's on the field. He's a fine tackler. He's got great coverage skills. He has outstanding hands, acceleration, and he made some plays. To get the ball in his hands, he can make one or two miss, and then he was just burst, and he's passed everyone for a touchdown. I can see why he's probably going to be the Heisman Trophy winner and probably the first pick of the draft.
What can you say about Jeff Grimes and how this thing has flipped? And he obviously pretty emotional, I would think, coming back to where he spent his last few years with Baylor.
Yeah, Jeff's a consummate professional. He doesn't say much when it comes to this, but I know he has a lot of pride in how he goes about his work. For our offense to get on track and do what it's doing doesn't surprise me, because I know the work and the time he's put into it. I again, just much like with Jalen, there's a lot of this that as the head coach, it's my responsibility, and I have to own the fact that I made Jeff learn this offense and do what we've been doing. And I don't want to say that he was uncomfortable in it, but I do know there's some adjustments, just like for anyone. And what I've been able to see really for the last 4 weeks or so, him feeling really good about what we're doing and how we're going into games and attacking it. And I know, he'll have the guys ready for Saturday.
Devin Neal was on and not the first time in his career, but particularly last week, entered that game on a mission. Like, he was as locked in as anyone I've seen in a game this year. Do you get that sense as a head coach when you're like, oh, this guy's he's got something going tonight that I don't know if we maybe saw coming?
Yeah, it was, we felt for us to have a chance to win this game that we're going to have to win it up front on both sides of the line of scrimmage. And you could say that about so many games, but this one was special because we knew we were going to have to be able to run the ball, control the clock some, because they are so explosive offensively and they can make things happen so quickly. And it was one of those that even after the BYU game, he knew that he was going to be carrying the ball a little bit more this week. And at the same time, I think if you're going to write a script though we're not playing in Lawrence, but if you've got the local guy who stayed here, who's playing his last home game, I don't know if there was more fitting ending for a guy in his regular season career as a Jayhawk for what that young man put up on Saturday.
Yeah, that was very, very cool to see that. Coach, final thing from me, it's Thanksgiving week. You mentioned that, there's no break in the schedule. I was just curious, how does Thanksgiving sort of work? Are you a white meat, dark meat type of guy? And most of all, what are you thankful for?
Well, I'm thankful for an opportunity to do what I do on a daily basis and actually get a chance to visit with people like yourself. I'm thankful for my family. I have a loving wife who's so supportive of what I do for a living, as well as 2 wonderful children that have made us extremely proud. I'm blessed to be the coach of the Jayhawks. As far as the other of the Thanksgiving stuff, I'll probably lean a little more towards the white meat, but mashed potatoes, gravy's going to be the key. You got to have a lot of food on your plate, and I'm definitely cranberries, and I also want to make sure I get in that I'm going to make room for pumpkin and pecan pie as much as possible later in the day.
Whipped cream on top?
If it's there, I can go either direction, but if it's there, I'm using it. That's for sure.
My last question, and we do appreciate your time. Coach Leipold walked straight out of a meeting to be a part of this show, and you've given us a lot of time. We appreciate it. You've been a part of multi-game playoff scenarios year after year with Wisconsin Whitewater and what you did. Do you feel like people realized, even at the highest level, we've seen semifinals to championship, multiple games week after week for some of the teams that might play into January?
I guess I want to make sure I'm understanding the question.
The attrition of trying to win maybe 3 or 4 games to win a national title, and you've had to do that many times.
Yeah, in the Division III playoffs, you had to win 5 games to win it all, and though it's exciting, it can be draining because every game gets bigger. And I was asked that question a lot when I was a Division III coach and doing local radio interviews and things. They would ask about what I thought about a playoff at this level, and I said, it can be good, it can be exciting, but all we're really going to do is change the arguments. We used to argue about who should be in there, whatever. Yep. All we're going to do is change the arguments. We may not argue who the first 4 are going to be, then we're going to argue who, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 are versus whatever somebody else. We just find new ways for talk shows to have topics, I think, and which isn't bad either, right? So, right. But I do think it's going to be interesting to see. I'll tell you what I am in favor of, guys, is those home field games, and I think it's going to be interesting to see games in the upper part of the country hosting games. I think it'll be an interesting way to to see some of the rounds of the playoffs happen. But at the same time, I think our sport will be stronger in the long run as we continue to progress.
And one of our viewers just said, I'm thankful for this guy, Coach Leipold, coaching at KU this season. So thank you very much, man. Great to see you. Appreciated your time in Vegas and hope to see you very soon. Thank you.
Thanks, guys. Let's do it again sometime. Appreciate it.
Yes, sir.
Rock.
Lance Leipold, when we wrapped up the interview with him in Vegas and John McClain around the corner, he handed out his cell phone number to us. I never did. I sent a note to Coach Klieman earlier a couple weeks ago because obviously he was going through some stuff, but this Lance Leipold is the real deal, and I appreciate him.
No, I'm one of my favorite stories in coaching because of, waiting his turn and just proving it, winning and winning and winning again. I think Kansas, and Buffalo, like everybody who's hired him along the way, is just showing some real thought and like, hey, this guy just wins a lot. And then sometimes you get drilled down and like, well, he hasn't done it here. Like, okay, but it's not like he's running some sort of kooky system that you can't run other places. He's just winning.
He won 6
innovation.
national titles at Wisconsin Whitewater. Of course, the coaches at Mary Hardin Baylor and Mountain Union and others. But, man, he did one heck of a job. Really appreciate him very, very much. All right, when we come back, Hall of Famer John McClain, as the NFL has the weekend that starts with games on Thursday, Thanksgiving Day and more, and the Texans, are they running out of gas like maybe Washington and others? This is 365 Sports. He just mentioned the pie, pecan and pumpkin. Coach Leipold, I love pumpkin pie. I eat it maybe twice a year, Thanksgiving and maybe around Christmas. And right now at Waco Custom Marketplace, the Bauer family, 425 Lake Air Drive in Waco, if you go to their Facebook page, they have 8-inch pies. They have mini pies, pecan pie, German chocolate pie, buttermilk, coconut, and yes, pumpkin pies. Fresh made right there with their bakery that is there along with a full-service butcher shop at Waco Custom Marketplace. One of the questions is, what's a buttermilk pie? Grew up in California. I love your tri-tip, but raised by Midwestern parents, extended family. No aunt or grandma ever made buttermilk pie, but maybe you should try it, and they have it available. The Bauer family, Waco Custom Marketplace. Still time for you to get your hams and turkeys for Thanksgiving, and of course what you need through the holidays also there. 425 Lake Air Drive in Waco.
How did Edward Jones become one of the biggest financial service companies in the world? By not acting that way. Financial strategies, one-on-one advice, it's a big difference. And that's why Brad Wilson, your Edward Jones financial advisor, makes sense of investing. Experience the difference for yourself. Brad Wilson, 250 Shehan Drive in Woodway, 254-776-4337. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
Ready to take your business to the next level? Carrion Solutions has got you covered. We deliver world-class IT consulting, including Quest On Demand and Migration Manager, M365 and Exchange migrations, Active Directory assessments, security hardening, and Windows Server upgrades. Our experts specialize in consulting, monitoring, support, and managed IT services. We promise vision, professionalism, and unbeatable value. Satisfaction guaranteed. If you're not happy, we make it right. Remember the name Carrion Solutions. For more info, email sales@carrionsolutions.com or visit carrionsolutions.com. That's CARRION solutions.com. Carrion Solutions IT success guaranteed.
With so many companies and policies out there, it gets so confusing shopping for insurance, and I never know if I'm getting the policy that's right for me. Luckily, I met the team at the Niche Group Insurance Agency. With the Niche Group, you can go to one company and get access to coverage options from many insurance carriers, and you get to speak to a real person about your specific coverage needs. With the Niche Group, I know I'm getting the right coverage at the right price. If you need insurance, talk to the experts at the Niche Group at 1-800-258-8302.
He gets 5 bars on his cell phone, no matter where he is. He has never gotten food on his shirt. He can leap tall buildings in a single bound. But why would anyone need to do that? He is Cesar Leal of Leal's Mexican Restaurant, 9000 Panther Drive in Woodway.
I don't always eat Mexican food, but when I do, I prefer Leal.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com.
The 5 o'clock hour is sponsored by Edward Jones Investments with financial advisor Brad Wilson. Investing is time and experience back to you and your money during today's changing times. Edward Jones, making sense of investing.
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
365 Sports, Paul Catalina's top 5 around the corner. We're now joined by Hall of Famer John McClain. Covers more than the NFL. He covers sports and is a huge fan. And by the way, John, I got your text about Sawyer Robertson and not running much. Someone said they saw him walking around in a walking boot or whatever, but I don't think of anything that does seem to be too serious.
Well, he's sure not running as much or as well as he did early in the season when he was a force. And by the way, I do 13 weekly talk shows around the country, and I've been telling all of them about the great college game that's going to be played this weekend in Texas, and they all are fired up about it. I told them Baylor's going to finish its winning streak and keep Kansas from being bowl eligible. And, oh, yeah, they're playing in College Station, too.
I knew you'd do that.
John, Jalen Petrie got hurt, which is a super bummer. He's having a great season. The Texans' roller coaster of a year. I know that there's still a lot in front of them, but is there a sense that, I know there is at least among fans, that just to fast forward to the end of this, hit Control Alt Delete, reboot it, and make sure they build the team, especially in front of C.J. Stroud?
Well, first of all, after the 5-1 start, they're 2-4. Lost the downslide began when they lost on a 45-yard field goal with no time left at Green Bay, lose to Detroit on a 52-yard field goal with no time left. And okay, you can deal with those. But when you play a 2-8 team that's only scored 20 or more points twice, and only once in the last 6 games when it's averaging 15.2 points, and you let the Titans score 32 and beat you at home, it's the worst loss of D'Amico Ryans' 2 seasons. To me, it's the most humiliating loss they've had in regular season because of where they've been standing and where the Titans have been standing. And they made Will Levis look like Warren Moon and Tony Pollard look like Eddie George, and everybody is killing the Texans right now, and their offensive line is terrible, and they'll fire their coach. They won't start over because they've invested 2 number ones in left tackle Laramie Tunsil, 1 in left guard Kenyon Green, 1 in right tackle Titus Howard, 2 in the left guard Juice Scruggs, and they spent a lot of money on free agent Shaq Mason, who's only given up 9.5 sacks. So their offensive line is the reason that C.J. Stroud has become so erratic. He'll make great throws, and then he'll make head-scratching throws. And I read today on ESPN where pressure up the middle gets to him faster than any quarterback in the NFL. And that's because their interior line is terrible. They go to Jacksonville coming off its bye week. They've not lost in Jacksonville since 2017. If they were to lose this game, then coming out of their bye, they play Miami here, at Kansas City, Baltimore here, and at Tennessee. Shoot, they may not win another game and go straight down the toilet.
John, what were your thoughts on Jalen Petrie's injury? It looks like it's going to be a pretty long timetable, but hurting that shoulder, just the type of year he was having, and what that means for the Texans.
I'll be surprised if he comes back. They haven't said that's the case. It's a slightly torn pectoral muscle. They told us it was a shoulder during the game. Then they said the chest, but it's the pec. Now, if he has surgery, he's done for the year. And he had been moved into the nickel, and he was playing really, really well. And him being out forced the guy, Eric Murray, to have to play safety when safety Jimmy Ward took Petrie's place in the nickel, and Murray cost them 2 touchdowns, which is not his fault because he's a special teamer. And so it's interesting Petrie helped the Texans lead the league in pressures and tackles for loss, and they're on a roll right now, almost on the 42 sacks. Team record's 46, and yet they've given up the most touchdown passes in the league, 24, which makes no sense, but it shows. And their corners are good, but it shows you how bad their safeties have been. And I don't know if Trevor Lawrence is going to play. He's missed the last 2 games with a left shoulder injury. If I had a quarterback with a bad shoulder, I wouldn't want him going up against Danielle Hunter, who's had 5 sacks and 10 tackles for loss in the last 2 games, or Will Anderson Jr., who had 2 sacks, another one called back in his first game after missing 2. I think I'd put Mac Jones out there.
I saw a note about what Kansas City has won, half of their games on the last actual play of the game, and they are still, you don't take away wins, you don't take them for granted. But do they understand as a team that they're not playing at that level to win a 3rd straight Super Bowl if they don't get some things together?
I think they do know that, David. Last year they lost 6 games in regular season, finished 11-6. They've lost 1. Now, when they got to the playoffs, they turned it on. They beat Baltimore. I think they beat Buffalo, and then they beat San Francisco in the Super Bowl. And but they are winning in some interesting ways. And I was asked to contribute to a thing about what teams should be thankful for. And one of the things I put in there, Chiefs should be thanking God for miracles, because they've been winning some miraculous games in different ways. But right now, I think Buffalo is the best team in the AFC. And I think 2 best teams in the NFC are Detroit and Philly. If it comes down to it in the championship games, if the favorites make it, and we know that's not likely, it would be Kansas City and Buffalo, where the Chiefs always win in the playoffs, and then Philly at Detroit. And I would love to see the Lions in the Super Bowl. And your Commanders, as you know, have gone straight down the toilet.
Yeah.
And that game the other day with 2 kickoff returns for touchdowns, the Cowboys' last touchdown on the onside kick reminded me of when Baylor played Penn State in the Cotton Bowl. Same thing happened. Penn State took an onside kick back like that. It's so unusual. But there's really the competition besides Philly. The main competition for the Lions is in its own division. They play Minnesota in the last game, and there's nobody from the West, nobody from the South who's worth a darn. It's like an AFC. Nobody from the South's worth a darn. But there's not one. I guess if I had to pick one great one, I'd say it's Detroit. And then when I watched Baltimore, like last night, with their offense and their running game, they're capable of beating anybody. But their defense, they have given up the 2nd most touchdown passes behind the Texans. So their defense has been suspect. That's why the Ravens have 4 losses.
John, why do the Cowboys don't have the decency to be either really, really good and elite or really, really crappy?
It doesn't seem fair, doesn't it? They're never bad enough to get a quarterback, and I'm not so sure this is the year you want to be that bad. The Cowboys, and I'll tell you, I've watched Boise State 5 times because I want to watch running back Ashton Jenney. He went to high school right there where the Cowboys facility is. And if the Cowboys are able to get Ashton Jenney and give them the kind of running game they've been missing out on guys like Derrick Henry and Joe Mixon and Saquon Barkley and Josh Jacobs would have been worth it, because that kid, I've told you guys before, what he's doing at Boise State reminds me of what Barry Sanders did at Oklahoma State, although Jenney is bigger and stronger. So I think the Cowboys, they need to hit on these things. It's one bad year. People act like, oh, my God, the Cowboys are terrible when they've won 12 games 3 years in a row. They're disappointing in the playoffs, of course. But this is the one bad year. And Jerry Jones doesn't like it. I don't know what he can do about it except step away. And that's not going to happen. So you just hope that they realize they got to get a running game next year. And hopefully they can be healthy on defense because they certainly have the special teams right now.
So, John, 3 games on Thanksgiving Day. Also got the Black Friday game, Raiders at the Chiefs. But of the trio, Detroit Bears, Dallas and the Giants, and Green Bay and the Dolphins, which one is the most appetizing for you on Thanksgiving Day?
Lambeau Field. Playing Thursday night where it could be snowing. I love that game in Cleveland on Monday night. Everybody loves snow. They don't like wind and rain, but they love snow, winter wonderland. And that's the way it could be at Lambeau. I think it's not calling for snow right now, but seeing if Miami and Tua Tagovailoa can go on the road and make that passing game work the way it has been since he came back from his concussion is going to be so exciting. I like watching the Bears because, you know, they got Caleb Williams is coming off a really good game. He can play. I don't know if the Lions are going to blow him out or not, but I'm interested in that one. I'll be interested much more in the Cowboys. Now, usually I take a nap. I don't take a nap till the Cowboys are over. This might be a good time to take a nap. But if Drew Lock plays for the Giants instead of Tommy DeVito, Tommy Cutlets, or whatever they call him, it would be a much more interesting game. And if Turpin could get his hands on the ball about 10 times every game, it would be more exciting. But it'll still draw the biggest audience.
I'm a lifelong Washington fan like your wife, and I had a bad feeling about it. I think, as you mentioned earlier, the Commanders are running out of gas. But that was as bizarre when he hit McLaurin and then they missed the extra point. Just crazy, that rivalry. Even now, both teams are not very good, but that was nuts on Sunday. Nuts.
I thought, sure, when he hit the long touchdown pass, Washington was going to win that game, and then the freakish kickoff return for a touchdown, and then the last one. It was just, I think that's the first time it's ever happened in the fourth quarter in NFL history, isn't it?
Oh, great. That's
You made history.
Yeah, I know. I mean, that's the good
By
news.
the way, David, do you know why yesterday was a big day?
No, sir.
Neither did my wife. It was Joe Gibbs. Joe Gibbs celebrated his 84th birthday.
Wow. He's one of the only people in my life that I actually was nervous when I interviewed him. One, it was a time restraint. I had to walk around the Radio Row with him, with his handler. And the other one was Jim Brown, who sat down at the table at Radio Row one year and looked at me, and I almost like peed in my pants because he's such an intimidating figure.
And you're right. I felt the same way about Jim Brown. First time I was in a room with him at the Hall of Fame, I'm like, oh, my God, I'm standing in here in the same room with Jim Brown. I got to act like a badass like him. One time when my wife's parents, who didn't care about any sport, they lived in D.C. except the Redskins. All they cared about was politics. They'd come stay with us and watch C-SPAN and CNN, and my wife's the same way. Well, one time I came in from the Texans. It was about 10 p.m., and as I'm walking up to our door, I can see my wife's on a landline, and my in-laws are on cells, and they're all so excited about something. And I'm like, oh, my God, what's happened? I opened the door, and I said to her dad, and he never got excited about anything. I said, so what's going on? And he covers it, and he goes, Joe Gibbs is coming back.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh,
I'm
going to bed.
He gave him one pretty good year. I remember he beat Parcells or something like that in the late game to get in the playoffs. And so, but oh well. John.
I know, right quick, I know your listeners don't want to hear any more about the Redskins, but the fact is, if you go back and look at almost every team that won multiple Super Bowls, every coach had a great quarterback except one. Joe Gibbs won with 3 quarterbacks who will never be mentioned in the same sentence as Super Bowl, which might make him the greatest coach in history.
Absolutely. Joe Theismann, Doug Williams, and Mark Rippon, and that 91 team was explosive.
Hell to the Redskins.
Absolutely. Thank you, buddy. Have a great Thanksgiving,
Happy
John. You too.
Guys.
John McClain, Hall of Fame columnist with many things NFL Nuggets throughout the last, what we see now with that stretch drive's coming up, the Thanksgiving games and then the stretch drive in December. When we come back, Paul Catalina and more with his top 5.
Paul Catalina's Top 5, brought to you by Texas Beef House. Where's the best beef in Texas? Your house when you order from Texas Beef House. Unleash the flavor of Texas raised Wagyu. From our pasture to your plate, TexasBeefHouse.com.
Welcome into Paul Catalina's Top 5. It's Tuesday, and you know what that means? It's the last show of the week. Wait, why? It's Thanksgiving week. We've got the rest of the week off. Of course, we're back for the Baylor pregame show on Saturday on KWTX and, of course, this channel. TexasBeefHouse.com is our sponsor, and if you did not get your Texas Beef House for Thanksgiving, guess what? There's another big holiday coming up in about a month. So maybe get on bidonbeef.com, use our promo code 365sports, and get some nice Wagyu beef for the holiday if you missed out on this one. Top 5 CFP questions. Now, I know that tonight, in just a few minutes, they'll release the rankings. These things kind of maybe go deeper into the week. Number 5, why is parity so scary? And I did capitalize parity because we do have parity with a capital P right now. The SEC is a very balanced league. And as great as it's been, it's never really been balanced, right? The Big 12 has actually been balanced for a few years, but no one really wants to give it credit for that. The Big 10, heavy at the top for sure, 4 really good teams. After that, there's a drop-off, but the Big 12 and the SEC and even parts of the ACC have very evenly matched teams. But only one league is getting credit for that, and that's the SEC. So why is parity so scary when it comes to the Big 12? Well, because now you can't give the Big 12 credit for being such an even league. You have to downgrade it while simultaneously upgrading the SEC for having the same level of parity. If Saturday taught us anything, is that nothing makes any sense anymore, and we have to change our ideas about what really is the best of the best every single year and who's really earned it, and why parity is a good thing and not a scary thing. Number 4, can Texas A&M make the playoff with 4 losses? This is an interesting question because Greg Sankey a couple weeks ago said making the title game is reward enough. But with the loss to Auburn, that gives A&M 3 losses. So if they beat Texas and lose to Georgia, they're in the SEC title game. So according to Greg Sankey, that's reward enough. But that would make them 9-4 and probably 2 more losses than every single other team that's in the playoff. So does the SEC have enough sway, and is A&M a big enough brand name? It's probably not, to push that over the finish line. We'll see how powerful Greg Sankey is if that's the scenario. Who knows if it's going to be? Nothing makes sense anymore. If there's a theme of this, nothing makes sense anymore. Number 3, can SMU and Miami both make it? I don't think it's too much to ask of the ACC that says, okay, look, if making it to there, if both these teams are 11-1, the loser should probably make it, right? You got Cam Ward, especially if it's Miami and you wind up 11-2 against 12-1. Both those teams have pretty much earned it that way, but no, the Big Ten's got to have 4 and the SEC's got to have 4 based on our metric and our plan the whole time, but maybe let's shave off a couple of those teams and give the ACC a chance to have 2, because I think both SMU and Miami, should they make the title game at 11-1, have earned it based on Greg Sankey's metric of it's reward enough. Number 2, can Vandy ruin the SEC's shot at 4 teams? Going back to my Texas A&M thought, okay, say Texas A&M has that 4 losses and the committee says, well, we can't do that. Well, if Vandy goes and beats Tennessee this week, what happens there? Tennessee right now in a pretty good spot, but do they get knocked all the way back to where now legitimately you have Georgia, Texas, and one other? I don't know. It could get messy in the SEC. I still think they're getting 4 teams no matter what. And number 1, why is Indiana 10th? And I know maybe they're not going to be 10th when they say the rankings in a few minutes, but they're 10th right now in the AP. They have the exact same resume except for margin of loss as Penn State. The exact same resume, but Penn State's ranked higher. And the reason is
persecution happens even in conference. Indiana does not have the biggest name as Penn State, but Indiana's loss should have only knocked it down 2-3 spots, not 5 spots from where they were going into the week. That's their first loss. It's to the number 2 team in the country, a team that only lost by 1 point to the number 1 team in the country, who they will play in 2 weeks, or should play in 2 weeks, in the Big Ten championship game, provided Ryan Day finally figures out a way to beat Michigan this week. But Indiana, I think, in the AP rankings and probably overall, is going to get screwed a little bit here. Now, that would still put them in the playoff, but it sure does put them at risk for SEC getting 4 teams or someone like the Big 12 shooting back up the charts. That's going to do it for the top 5. Happy Thanksgiving, everybody.
Mike's not. There you go. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Paul. Happy Thanksgiving to you and Craig, too, and to Garrett Emery, I think, as well. And our audience, we appreciate all of you. We're going to take a break, get out of here. We'll be back Saturday morning for the Baylor and Kansas and really the college football Saturday game day on television with KWTX, on TV here with YouTube TV, and also much more. So thank you very much. Appreciate all of our guests. Thank you to everybody that's a part of it. We will be here, and we appreciate your support of what we do. For Craig Smoak and Paul Catalina, for Go Tigers and Garrett Ross and Emery Winter at his Sikkim Bears, we decided to wear our favorite team's colors in some particular way. I'm sure Lance Leipold walked away going, what the hell am I on with these guys? They're not even wearing KU stuff like Amanda. I'm David Smoak. Happy Thanksgiving. Enjoy the break. We'll be back with the full show on Monday, and good night on 365 Sports.